This feel familiar?
That is an absolutely shocking decision.
They've got a case in that it was a bad decision.
It's such a poor decision.
Yeah, I think he's just made a bad decision in that instance.
But what does it take to get to the very top of football refereeing? Every referee starts with their county FA. It's a simple training course and you can take it as soon as you hit your 14th birthday. Once you've done that, you have to go through at least 11 hours of face-to-face training. You'll then graduate as a Level 7 official, which means you can take charge of county-level games. But hold your horses, there's still a long way to go to get to the Premier League. Your next step is to spend a year each at Levels 6, 5 and 4. This covers the top of the amateur game. Only at Level 3 do you start doing Northern Counties or Isthmian League level games, for example. If you've done this all quickly, you can reach Level 2 and ref your first National League match after, I don't know, 6 years? After getting enough experience at that level, you can apply to be a referee in the EFL. There's an interview, people watching you do games, and then, if the EFL are happy, you'll be granted a Level 1 licence to ref in games in League 2 and above. Now, they don't just say on you go to the Premier League, you have to work your way up through the divisions. Only after years of hard work and refereeing on cold Tuesday nights in Stoke can you be considered to do matches in some of Europe's very best stadiums. Now, who was the youngest to reach the very top? It was actually Michael Oliver. He refed his first Premier League match in 2010 at the tender age of just 25. So if you want to follow in his footsteps, crack on. It'll only take you roughly a decade, thousands of hours of work and an incredibly thick skin. In total, there are 37,000 registered referees across England, but the PGMOL has only deemed 21 good enough for the top flight. That means there's not even a 1 in 1,000 chance you'll even make it in. Obviously, referees can make mistakes, but when you think about it, having a go at them is kind of like slating a brain surgeon.
Good afternoon, how are we? Welcome to the Sunday session. I'm Max Scott, and joining me for the next 3 hours is a former Chelsea and Benfica fullback, Scott Minto. Lee Carsley has done it again. England are back-to-back under-21 European champions. We'll take a look at the stars of the tournament and ask whether the senior team can take anything from that and actually win something for themselves. 4 hours after kick-off, Chelsea's Club World Cup clash against Benfica finally finished. They're through to the round of 16. But what do we make of these regular weather delays, and what does this mean for the World Cup next year? I'll get a bleary-eyed Scott Minto's take on that, who was working on that game in the early hours for talkSPORT. We'll be getting stuck into the debate about the new changes to the TV coverage of the Premier League. We're getting half-time interviews with managers, in-game chats with substituted players, and dressing room content. Is this a much-needed update to bring the game even closer to fans, or just another example of the YouTuberification of the beautiful game? And of course, we'll bring you all your feature favourites, sounds of the weekend, smiles and Stranger Things. Let's get into it then. This is the Sunday session on talkSPORT. Well, delighted to say that it is the two Scots for the show, Max Scott and Scott Minto. How are you, mate?
It is, mate. I must admit, I'm a little bit tired.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a mental situation what happened last night, stroke this morning. By the way, two Scots. It would have been good if your old man, say, really sort of loved Scott Gemmell or something like that, wouldn't it? And sort of said,
well, Archie Gemmell, Forest legend.
Yeah, but Scott, you know, that's what I mean. Yeah. But anyway, two Scots here. Yeah, I'm okay, mate. Once that red light comes on,
exactly.
It's amazing how you sort of.
You must have been on air for a long time.
Well, to be honest with you, we had a very good producer, so we were on air for 30 minutes. We had no real information, just kind of filling and that. And then it was like, and it's a mental ruling. It really is. It's if there's any sort of lightning within an 8-mile radius, then it resets to 30 minutes. So it could be 29 minutes of no lightning within 8 miles, and suddenly 7.5 miles away, there's a little bit of lightning, and it's another 30 minutes. And it just kept another 30 minutes. So in the end, let's just say Danny Kelly's Cult Heroes is a great watch, a great listen. And
Absolutely.
It was brilliant. So we listened to a few of those.
We're, of course, talking about the Scott Minto derby here. It was obviously Chelsea 4,
right.
Benfica 1 after extra time. It's sort of quite funny that the game lasted about 4 hours in America, where NFL games go on for hours,
Yes,
baseball
it
games
was like baseball,
go
yeah.
on for hours. But, I mean, what do you make of the actual performance and Chelsea's sort of chances of going far in this tournament?
Well, look, I mean, and obviously we're going to be talking a lot about the England under-21s as well. And you could argue with their group stage, they weren't particularly great. And I would say for Chelsea, it was the same. 2 comfortable wins.
Yep.
The most difficult team they came up against, they lost 3-1. But actually, it did them a favour by being in the other side of the draw. So you miss out PSG, you miss out Real Madrid, you miss out Bayern Munich. Manchester City, have to say, covered that game against Juventus. They look very, very good. So I'm slightly concerned for Chelsea if we are able to get past Palmeiras, and that won't be easy because they're a good side. Obviously got Estevao, who's going to be playing for Chelsea next season. I don't know what the ruling is, whether he's allowed to play against his old team. And he could. I was on with Nat and Cass earlier on, and Nat made a really good point. Well, actually, if he scores the winner, he could stop Chelsea getting an extra £30-odd million or something.
Well, that's pocket change for Todd Bailey, isn't it?
Well, maybe. But from PSR point of view, they could do with it.
Absolutely. But
look, I thought it was a really professional performance, as Enzo Maresca said, for 85 minutes. Then a mental 2 hours sitting around not knowing what the heck was happening, and of course there had to be some kind of thing happening. I mean, Benfica. Obviously, I love the club, and I could bore you, mate. Honestly, I'll do it off air about what a wonderful club it is, wonderful country. We all kind of love Portugal, but living that lifestyle, the people, the 80,000 people for pre-season games, just incredible.
It's incredible.
So I was really a bit disappointed with them, how they played, actually. There was only one shot on target for 85 minutes, but obviously I was kind of secretly supporting Chelsea and to get through. But when the penalty came, then you're thinking, wow. And then when they got a player sent off in extra time, I think that was the killer. Christopher Nkunku did really well to make it 2-1, and then there was always going to be one winner there.
Can Chelsea go all the way?
I think Chelsea can go to the semi-finals. My heart says yes. My head says Man City already look very, very good. And I was sitting here with Sam Matterface on Friday morning, actually filling in for Troy, actually, and said that, do you know what? I thought it would take 6 to 8 months for everyone to gel, the new players, to understand Pep Guardiola's way of playing. And I know that Juventus aren't the Juventus of old, but this was City of 2 years ago. I'm telling you, if they needed to score 7 or 8, they would have done. They were that good.
And what I've been really, I guess, impressed with, but you would expect this from a Man City side that spent hundreds of millions in the last 6 months, but totally different starting 11s in the first 2 games from Pep Guardiola. Then in the third game, a hybrid of that. And I think for the sake of the Premier League, for the sake of player welfare, I think it's nice to see that Pep sort of mixing it up a little bit, because we need that. Otherwise, for me, I'm really concerned that the Premier League is going to suffer at the start of next season.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see, the starting 11 of both City and Chelsea in the first game of the Premier League season.
Yeah.
But actually, it might be they're okay at the start of the season. It's towards the end of the season where they're not, and obviously then you've got the World Cup on top. And
that's the thing.
So many different layers to it. We can go where you want. 2 years of playing non-stop football. Then in each summer, you're going out to the States.
And are you concerned about the World Cup? I mean, we've briefly talked about it, but we've had these weather delays. It seems that FIFA haven't necessarily covered themselves in glory, really, because there's already this issue.
That's a very kind way of saying it.
Well, I'm diplomatic. I'm a journalist. What can I say? I need to sit on the fence sometimes. But it strikes me as they've just completely got their knickers in a twist, because they've seen the cash cow that is the FIFA Club World Cup. And don't get me wrong, I've actually really got into it and enjoyed it, particularly watching South American teams. But you've not only got the issue of some of the best players in the world potentially not even playing in the World Cup because they've been run into the ground. You've not only got the issues of the pitches being dry, the ball not moving, but the weather as well. Are you concerned that the World Cup, I mean, it'll always sell, won't it? But it might be a bit of a dud next year because of those things. Yeah,
I mean, look, I've said for the last couple of weeks, from a player's point of view, I don't think this tournament should be happening. Listen, I was a player, but you and me and millions around the world want to be watching the very best players in the world do things that we could only dream of doing. in the biggest tournament in the world.
Yeah.
So peaking at the right time. And whatever you say about the Qatar World Cup, as whether it should have been there or not, that for me was one of, if not the best that I can remember, because it was played mid-season. So I am worried about it. The heat, the humidity can't be stopping and starting. The only thing I would say is there's a lot to learn from this tournament and the way they organise it and the locations and the protocols. So I would imagine the broadcasters will say, look, we've let you off on this one because we're not really showing it. But the World Cup, when we are, no, we're going to make sure this doesn't happen.
Right, we've got so much more to get through with Scott Minto, but first we want to quickly go straight over to talkSPORT's Piers Pryor, who's watching the Austrian Grand Prix for us. What's the latest, Piers, mate?
Well, I would be talking about the Austrian Grand Prix, but unfortunately, we haven't started yet. It should be about 5 or 6 laps in at this stage, but Carlos Sainz's car couldn't get away from the line, so there was a pause, and then he did get away. But when he got back to the grids, his rear brakes were on fire, so we're apparently 4 minutes away from the second formation lap. The race length will be reduced from 71 laps to 70. Lando Norris still from pole position, Charles Leclerc second, and Piastri starting third. No change there. I'll keep you updated as things go on.
Brilliant stuff, Piers. He will be keeping us updated throughout the show on the Austrian Grand Prix. But now it's time for this.
Sounds of the weekend.
This is a journey into sound.
On talkSPORT.
Yes, of course, this is Sounds of the Weekend. From some of the best stories of the week, we're going to be asking you to send in your songs that reflect these stories. First up, we have to start with this story from England's under-21s Euro win. From mascot to match winner, Jonathan Rowe's story is one of grit, heart and unstoppable belief. At 9 years old, Jonathan Rowe walked hand in hand with David Luiz at Wembley, dreaming big as Frank Lampard sealed a win over Brazil. Fast forward 12 years and it's Rowe himself heading in the winner against Germany. His journey wasn't easy though. Daily 3-hour commutes, caring for a sick mum and battling painful injuries, but nothing could dim this lad's fire. He burst onto the scene with Norwich, netting 13 goals and earning a £17 million move to Marseille. Game time was scarce, doubts crept in, but Rowe never stopped believing. Left out of the last England under-21 squad, he came back stronger. Now he's lifting the trophy, living proof that dreams do really come true. I mean, how about that, Scott? It's a heartwarming story,
That's
isn't it?
a brilliant story. And again, I was listening to the breakfast show earlier on, and Natalie was saying about how when he was caring for his sick mum, I think he was only 11 at the time. And then he was obviously a little bit, as an apprentice, travelling 3 hours, commuting one way and the other. That's a sensational story, so well done to him.
Absolutely. Get your texts coming in 03717223344 on WhatsApp, 81089 on text. We want some songs for that. I mean, I'm thinking already Eye of the Tiger. Do you know what I mean? Just from the bottom to the top.
Yeah.
That motivational, I mean, what a great story. You've got another one for us though, Scott?
I have indeed. YouTuber sensation turned boxer Jake Paul silenced the doubters. Well, okay. And battered a fading legend's son in a dominant drama-filled victory over Julio Chavez Jr. Soaking up the booze, Paul grinned and shouted, "I'm him," as he controlled the fight from start to finish. Chavez Jr., once boxing royalty, looked lost, barely throwing punches, while Paul jabbed, danced and landed at will. The crowd's cheers quickly turned to jeers as their hero faltered. Brief sparks in rounds 4 to 6 gave false hope, but Paul snuffed them out with slick combos. A desperate final round charge wasn't enough. Paul stayed cool, flashy and in control. Once again, Chavez Sr. watched his son fall short on the big stage.
I mean, interesting one there, but ultimately we want songs to reflect Jake Paul beating up old men and has-beens and waiting for him to fight an actual boxer. He's only fought one boxer, Tommy Fury, and he lost. But let's have your songs for Jake Paul. Our first songs of our Sounds of the Weekend are coming right up, and we'll look back at the Under-21 Euros final as England tasted glory once again under the mighty Lee Carsley. This is the Sunday Session on talkSPORT.
Sounds of the weekend on the Sunday session on talkSPORT.
Yeah, that's right. You're listening to the Sunday session with me, Max Scott, alongside Scott Minto. These are our songs of the weekend. We've got Don't Stop Believing by Journey. That's from Nathan, the Liverpool fan. And of course, Queen, We Are the Champions. That's in reference to Jake Paul's victory over a has-been boxer. But we'll give him his due. He's done well. He's turned from YouTuber to fighter, hasn't he, Scott?
He's picking his fight as well, isn't he, at the moment?
But he's picking his fight as well, isn't he? I mean, you know, fair play to him. He's making a lot of money. He's
probably one of the best of them out there, but yeah, we'll see once he meets a proper boxer in his prime, see what happens.
Absolutely, but it's not just Jonathan Rowe and Jake Paul that's getting the credits. Callie has just tweeted me and said Scott Minto is a trooper in reference to your all-nighter covering Chelsea.
Callie, love that. Thank you very much indeed.
Game.
Yeah.
So yeah, fair play. Scott Minto still here, still alive and kicking. Now let's remind ourselves of the England under-21s feat last night as they thrashed Germany 3-2 to become the UEFA European champions after nothing short of an impressive season.
It's disappointment, but ultimately success for England as they lose here on the night, but do go through.
Going into the tournament, we look to, try to get through the group. That was the main aim.
This game has been labelled as a Classico fixture by Spain boss Santi Denia.
Every game England played, someone has stepped up for England.
It's Anderson. It's destination Bratislava. England are into the semi-finals surely now of the Under-21 Championship. This is the next step and by far the toughest step to date.
We want to try and win it. We believe that we can.
Elliott sprints into an infield position now. Central area, running all the way into the penalty area. What a goal!
So explosive with the way that he moves and his end product. So he's, we're very lucky to have.
One more game over the line, then they're going to be heroes throughout the country.
The holders of the Under-21 European Championship will have the chance to retain their trophy.
Do you know, I think probably most people will make England the favourites because of the way they've been playing, because of their resilience and their character.
I've got a lot of belief in this squad. How together they are has been a testament to themselves, and it's good that they're getting the rewards that they deserve.
Well, how about that? England secured back-to-back Under-21 European Championship titles, a feat not achieved since the 1980s. I mean, you saw that first half, Scott, before you were covering the Chelsea game. I mean, England raced ahead with those early goals, looked dominant in that first half. Harvey Elliott, Amari Hutchinson, but then just showed the minerals in the bottle that, maybe the senior squad have been criticised of not having in those moments. And to see the youngsters do it, it's just so refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's two different parts to that question. I'm sure we can talk a little bit later about the senior lot. It's a massive step up from the under-21s, but let's focus on the 21s. I think when you think about how they started, and I alluded to them earlier, the group stages against Czechia, where actually they won, but they conceded chances. 0-0 in the second game, and then they lost to Germany, who made 11 changes in that game, and Germany were the better side. So they're playing Germany's reserve side. I think the Spain game was the one where, obviously one of the top sides pre-tournament favourites, and they stepped it up and they were able to find a way past them. I think that gave them the belief, and almost everything kind of clicked. When you're playing at top level, and obviously the under-21s in the Euros, it's elite. Quite often it's psychological. Lee Carsley's done everything. Listen to Ashley Cole there. So much to learn off him. But they have to believe in and do it once they go over the white line. The manager can only do so much. It always has been and always will be, Max, about the players. A manager's tactics are more important than ever, but ultimately about the players doing that. And for them to get past Spain, then to get past the Netherlands, that first half was without a doubt, by a million miles, the best part of their tournament. Yeah. And then, as you say, just before half-time, to concede a goal, then,
it took the wind out their sails.
Well, the little devil appears on the shoulder and starts talking negative things to you. Yeah. So for them, and when it went to 2-2, and of course they hit the crossbar towards the end, Germany. So you need a little bit of luck. But I think Lee Carsley, and I'll go back to it, I think so much credit must go to him. And if I were able to speak to him, I'd say, listen, enjoy it a little bit more. I know he took his medal off because it's not about him, it's about the players. But actually, you're not trying to get the spotlight. Yeah. You've played a massive part in this. Just enjoy it. Just go with it. But look, the bottom line is, I thought, once he made that sort of substitution, it was a brave substitution to take Jay Stansfield off and put Jonathan Rowe on, because there's not an out-and-out number 9 there. And of course, he did that in the senior side against Greece, and we know what happened there. So, to do that in a final, I think showed real courage. And we went on to win the game, win the tournament. I don't think that he should go anywhere. I think he should carry on doing for England.
He's signed a contract extension, hasn't he, to 2027?
Yes. Yeah. I'd want to see him there in that position as long as possible, because the under-21 manager, there's two things he needs to do. One, he needs to try and develop players, and two, he needs to win the tournament you're in. The players need to understand how to win a tournament. Now, it's a massive step up. I liken it almost a bit like, with the greatest of respect, from a championship to the Premier League. Mm-hmm. It's such a big jump to suddenly go in to be in the senior side in every level, especially the sort of the pressure side of it, the psychological side. But what he's done there, he's developing players, he's winning tournaments, tick, tick, keep him there.
I mean, you talk about developing players. The concern for me, looking ahead to the World Cup, and we'll talk more about this after the break, is whether any of those players are going to be given a chance from Thomas Tuchel.
Agreed.
But what I will say on that current crop of players that, as I said, showed the bottle, the minerals to go, and against the pressure, Germany coming back to all, there were so many leaders across that pitch. Harvey Elliott Anderson, James McAtee, I was thoroughly impressed with him, because of course he's living under the shadow of these world-class players at Manchester City. Even in a season where they've underperformed, he's not had a huge amount of game time. Of course there's been glimpses, but he was shoulders back, and he's a diminutive figure, isn't he? But he was getting stuck into tackles. He was covering every blade of grass, and that can be said for so many players. You know, players that you very rarely hear of. Jonathan Rowe, like you say, coming on the pitch, scoring a fabulous header. He'd slipped as well, so he's adjusted mid-air to score the winner.
Brilliant ball from Tyler Morton.
Oh yeah, another one who comes on.
Ball. Alex
Scott's injured. Morton comes on. He's running the game for large portions. But what I will say, just as a separate point, the game itself was fantastic. It ebbed and flowed. There was periods of dominance for both sides. And can I just say, as someone that's 6'7", what's his name? Nick Voltermader. He's the 2-meter Messi, they call him, the Germany striker. Yeah. He looks like a perfect love child between Peter Crouch and Dimitar Berbatov. I'm telling you now. And if I was 10 years younger and had been to the gym a little bit earlier, I reckon I could be a Voltermader.
You want to look like him, is that right, yeah?
Well, I don't necessarily want to look like him. Okay, but I will play like him. I mean, he scored, I think, 12 goals in 28 games for Stuttgart. The rumours are that they're already
signed for Bayern.
So you look at that and think, there's a proper player in the making, and you just watch that game, and there are so many players that eventually will make it through to their respective senior squads.
I just think it's, again, going to a final especially, but at elite level, it's about the mind. You're good enough technically, you can understand what the manager's saying, he wouldn't have picked you otherwise. So then it's like, can you go out there? And the fact that they were beaten by basically the Germany reserve side already, there could have been some demons there, but there weren't. They started off absolutely brilliantly. As you say, it ebbed and flowed. How many finals are kind of boring? Or just, there's too many nerves there, really. But that was just had absolutely everything. And, I go back to, No Delap, Harwood Bellis, Branthwaite, Bellingham, Wharton, Lewis, Gittins. And he's done that. That's practically half the team.
Yeah.
And yet he's gone and won it again. So I think he's creating that mentality, which I think is so important to the senior side.
Absolutely. Right, next on the Sunday session. Don't you know I'm still standing better than I ever Of course, it is Elton John's I'm Still Standing by Rupert, the Northampton fan, referring to the Jake Paul victory over Chavez Jr. in that fight last night. Don't go anywhere, though, as we'll continue to look back at England's 3-2 win over Germany in the Under-21 Euros final, and huge news coming from the Austrian Grand Prix. Stick with us on the Sunday session. It's not often you associate fan power with Chelsea Football Club, but one of the shining examples of it lies with a group called the Chelsea Pitch Owners. And they've proved to be the thorn in the side of owners past and present who've been dead set on moving stadiums to a larger, more lucrative piece of land. Essentially, the supporters group holds the freehold to the land on which Stamford Bridge sits. Former owner Ken Bates set it up at a time where some unruly property developers tried to evict the club from their ground. In order to prevent this, he established the CPO as a company that owned the pitch and offered the fans the chance to buy a share for £100. As well as that, they also own the rights to the name Chelsea Football Club, so if any owner wants to take them elsewhere, they can't be called Chelsea without the approval from the CPO. Now, in 2011, Roman Abramovich tried and failed to move them away from Stamford Bridge, and this has set a precedent for Todd Bowley and the current power brokers at Chelsea. They know any plan which involves moving from Stamford Bridge will require CPO approval from the now 13,000 fans who own it. There are fans who are concerned that if they stay at the bridge, they'll be left behind their domestic and European rivals who are moving to more commercially successful stadiums. But for the heritage and history lovers, Stamford Bridge is one of the iconic English stadiums, and to move away would be a grave mistake. It might not be as flashy as others, but stadiums like it have something about them that cannot be replaced. One thing's for sure, if Bowley wants to take Chelsea away from their home, he'll have to go through the CPO first. Yeah, this is the Sunday session with me, Max Scott, alongside Scott Minto. We've got loads to get through, but we need to get straight back to the Austrian Grand Prix. talkSPORT's Piers Pryor is watching it for us. Piers, big drama already.
Yeah, drama at the start of the race. I spoke to you guys earlier on, delayed start after Carlos Sainz couldn't get away and they had a bit of rear brake fire. But when we did get going after a 10-minute delay, immediate drama. Leclerc got away from second place well and attacked Norris into turn one. But that actually backfired and allowed Oscar Piastri to get through. And now we're looking at a battle for the lead, nose to tail, between the two McLarens. And a reminder, that is our championship lead battle as well. 22 points. Oscar Piastri has the advantage over Norris at the moment. Norris still leading at the moment, but also on lap one into turn three, Kimi Antonelli crashed hard into the side of Max Verstappen, taking them both out of the race. Just a mistake on the brakes into turn three from Kimi Antonelli ends Verstappen's 31 point scoring run, so he is out of the race, much to the disappointment of the Austrian fans who are in force. And we've also seen passes backwards and forwards between former teammates, now of course rivals, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Russell got through and then Hamilton passed him with an excellent move around the outside of turn 6, and we're now looking at an even closer battle between the leaders right now. I'll keep you updated as the afternoon goes on.
Brilliant stuff. That's talkSPORT's F1 correspondent Piers Pryor talking us through the action in Austria. Max Verstappen out the Grand Prix is a good day for sports fans. Right, back over to the coverage from England's under-21's famous victory, and talkSPORT's Ollie Klink and Darren Ambrose discussed what next for Lee Carsley. And before we ask Scott Minto, here's what the boys had to say after the game last night.
The FA surely will want to cling on to him because this is so vital to the progression of England.
They have to. They have to do whatever they can to keep hold of him. Progression of England, winning these tournaments back to back, it's an amazing achievement. The progression of these players, we've seen throughout the years the players that have come through Lee Carsley and then gone up to the full squad. And there's going to be more from this squad. You don't win the Euros and then not have any of the players go to the full squad. It's an amazing achievement. Whatever he decides to do, look, he's going to get suitors. He's a top manager. He's a top coach. I think he deserves to have this much credit. He deserves opportunities to maybe take a top Premier League job, but who knows what he wants to decide to do. He seems to enjoy this role. He seems made for this role. The role seems made for him as well. So hopefully the FA sort this position out, and keep him with the under-21s for a long, long time.
Scott, I know you're a fan of Lee Carsley. What next for him? Do you think that his ambition should stretch to club football, or do you think that he's found a place where he should stay for the long term?
Yeah, I think if you're in the right place and you're manager of whatever team, whether it's a club side or whether it's a national side, and you're happy where you are, I'm a great believer in be careful what you wish for. Obviously, you've got to be ambitious. We all should be ambitious. But I think if you believe in yourself, then success will come. Now, is he going to do that again next time around and win it 3 times?
Do you think Lee Carsley believes in himself? Because having watched him with the pressure on him for that short time where he's in charge of the senior team, I felt like he looked like a little bit of a wilted flower at times. And he's clearly got a great coaching brain. He's clearly a fantastic coach. Look at what he's achieved for the under-21s. But I sort of wonder maybe if he doesn't actually believe himself as much as he should.
It's a good question. I don't know what he's actually thinking. I don't know whether he believes in himself. I mean, the way he comes across, though, all we can see is the perception of what he gives us. And I'm in total agreement with you.
And I think he should. I think he should believe in himself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I think he does. It's just from the PR side, the media side. We want our managers to be really funny and charismatic and this, that and the other. Well, actually, I just want my manager to win.
Exactly.
Just get the tactics right and win. I think he should, embrace it a little bit more. Like, he doesn't need to take off the medal. I don't know why he did that. Maybe it was because it's not about me, it's about the players. But no, just like, you've done it, brilliant, enjoy it, you're part of it. I've already said that it's down to the players ultimately, but he's masterminded with quality players that he hasn't had available to beat the best that Europe has to offer at that age group. Now, I personally think he should stay where he is and for a period of time as well. You could argue that, look, he's probably not going to do it a third time. We don't know. So his stock is as high as it could be.
Yeah.
Does he want to be a club manager? I don't know. If he does, then there's going to be that itch inside him where he just can't scratch. And if he's getting offers, if he does want to be a club manager, I'm sure he will be getting offers, then maybe he should go and take it, because you basically have to follow what's right for you, Max. Everybody's different. But I personally would say that can still come in the future, and I'd stay where I am right now, developing. And he seems to be loving it. He doesn't always smile, does he? But he seems to be absolutely loving the position he's in. And he did seem uncomfortable with the step up. And that's my sort of argument, really, in terms from a playing point of view, from a managing point of view, from a everything point of view. The step up from under-21s to the senior level is something that just like hits you in the face. And you have to be able to deal with that, or you will wilt.
One thing that, look, it was great to see Lee Carsley enjoying it. About sort of 30 seconds before the full-time whistle, he was turning around, geeing up the family members of the players, and he did that a few times in the second half, and I like to see that confidence. Just regardless of how confident Lee Carsley is in the public sphere, one thing he is fantastic at is developing players. It is clear to see, and it's what England needs. We heard Darren Ambrose there saying, you can't have England under-21s win the Euros and them not make the senior side. I would say, unfortunately, I think I can see a world where that does happen, because it looks like Thomas Tuchel doesn't fancy Adam Wharton, despite the fact, in my opinion, he's one of the strongest young players in Europe in that position. And so my question to you, Scott, is, of those players that performed, you got Harvey Elliott being player of the tournament, Elliot Anderson ripping up trees, covering every blade of grass, just sort of dominating the midfield, James McAtee, there's so many players in there. Are any of them going to make the World Cup squad next season under Tuchel?
Jack Hinselwood, I think, was fantastic as well. The two centre-halves, Quanston and Cresswell, brilliant. I think the one person who has the biggest chance, and I actually kind of think the only chance that we haven't mentioned yet, is Tino Livramento.
Yes.
And I'm with you that I think if Gareth or Sir Gareth was in charge right now, they'd have a lot more of an opportunity to do that. I think he's obviously been an under-21 manager himself. He does like to promote from within, as it were. But this is Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah.
And we've already seen, if anything, he's gone older, not younger. And I think it's going to be very difficult for these players to break into it. I think even Livramento is going to have to probably do it at left back, not right back. So, Elliot Anderson, I know what you're thinking. He's had a wonderful season. Give him a chance. It will be fascinating to see if he will be given a chance. But I just feel with what happened with the senior side, a shocking performance against Andorra, and Senegal wasn't much better. And obviously we lost that game. I think he's going to be so ruthless. This is all about the World Cup. This is nothing else. And he will be absolutely what he thinks would be the players ready for that particular competition. And as I say, I think he'll go more experience. And actually, in terms of winning the World Cup, I'm with him on that. I look at the Euros. I defended Gareth Southgate for the first 3 tournaments, and I didn't in the last one, because I felt he almost went with form and not with the senior pros, where people have given him a stick before.
Yeah.
And the Jordan Hendersons, whatever people say about him, and I understand from a playing point of view, and in his conditions, he's not going to be playing every game. And even if he doesn't play many games or many minutes, you cannot underestimate what it's like to have the right character around the training pitch, the dressing rooms, the training grounds, and the hotel generally. When things aren't going well, and we saw that quite early in the Euros, that there was a lot of players. And Gareth himself didn't seem as usual. He seemed a little bit unsettled by the criticism that he got. For me, the likes of Jordan Henderson would be saying, do you know what, don't worry about that. We're going to do our thing. It's not them and against us. And I felt that's the way it sort of ended up being. And we got to the final. We almost limped the way through the final. And the country didn't feel 100% behind them, which seems a bit ridiculous in many respects.
Well, on the Sunday session earlier today, actually, Henry Winter weighed in on what we've just been discussing and what potential England under-21 stars could make the jump to the senior side.
Anderson or Wharton for the World Cup?
Anderson.
You see, you would have said Wharton before this tournament.
No, I've been an Anderson. I mean, Joey Barton.
You probably want them both in.
Joey Barton introduced me to Anderson when he was on loan at Bristol Rovers, and there's some players who you meet and they just have a certain aura to them, even if maybe you haven't watched them that much. And he's got a certain presence. Then Wolves and Boys Club will be the 6th player from.
I saw you mentioning that.
Yeah, but that's great, that isn't it?
I want to get your take on this, Scott. You've just said
I want to get your take as well as a Forest fan.
Well, as a Forest fan, Elliot Anderson, the Geordie Maradona, needs to be in the England squad. As a Forest fan, as a football observer, being unbiased, Elliot Anderson needs to be in that World Cup squad because he can play 6, he can play 8, he can even play 10 if he needs to.
Who does he replace?
Jordan Henderson, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, if Jordan Henderson is such a standard setter, which I believe he is, if he's so integral to the standards and the culture, get him in as a coach. Don't waste a space when you've got talent like Wharton, like Anderson. But one thing I'd say to you is you've talked about experience and you've given a really good case as to why we need that experience.
I feel a butt coming on.
But what I would say is that I don't think that youth and experience are two completely separate things. You look at Spain. Lamine Yamal, 16, 17 years old at the time, won the Euros. Him as the sort of linchpin for that.
Well, that's a genius you're talking about.
It is, and I'm not comparing Anderson to Lamine Yamal. They're totally different players. I just think in this era, with the experience of winning the under-21s, with the experience, for example, of Elliot Anderson getting Forest to Europe for the first time in 30 years, I think that players nowadays can deal with that pressure. And so I don't necessarily think it's a choice between experience and youth. I think you need to have a blend. And so I'm slightly disappointed in the disconnect between Lee Carsley blooding in these young champions, back-to-back champions, different squads, and then Thomas Tuchel saying, no, we're going to go with a 35-year-old who's played his last couple of years in Saudi Arabia and their Eredivisie, and by the way, bottled the title there. So, look, Jordan Henderson, great servant, great standard setter. You would want him in and amongst your players, but surely you want someone that's going to deliver on the pitch.
Yeah, and as you said, he's someone who's not going to play all the time. He's not going to start all the time. I understand what you're saying, but it's still, when you're part of the coaching staff, you're not really part of the playing staff. You can obviously go off and talk and that, but it's when you're on the training pitch, it's just different. It really is. So I'd still have him there. Look, I'm not saying that Elliot Anderson shouldn't be or Adam Wharton shouldn't be in the squad. I just don't think that they will be.
No, you don't think any of them will?
Tino Livramento, I think, has got a chance too, for sure.
Yeah, I think he has to be there.
I mean, look at Harvey Elliott. He's the player of the tournament. Yeah. Are we talking about him? Do we think that Thomas Tuchel will put him in the side?
Well, I think he needs to go somewhere to get regular minutes.
Absolutely.
Because again, I saw last night in him, not just a fantastic, skillful player, but the leadership. And I love seeing that in England players because it's what we need.
He needs to be one of the main men. And he's not going to be the main man at Liverpool.
Where do you think he needs to
go? Well, even if he has to go abroad, to go abroad. Ironically enough, a team like Fulham.
Yeah.
I was listening earlier to Max and Charlie, the guy that came on who's a Fulham fan, and said that he'd still take him back. Absolutely, but and I think from his point of view now, the tournament that he's had, the way he's kind of been the star of the tournament. He needs to tell himself, I need minutes. I need to play. I've loved this, and this is what I need. I need to be one of the main men in my team. But I do agree with you that that number 6 role is up for grabs. I don't think Thomas Tuchel thinks we have a proper 6. I don't think he thinks he doesn't see Declan Rice as a proper 6.
No. And Declan Rice has played himself out of the number 6 with his form for Arsenal.
I wouldn't say play himself out. He can still do a job.
Oh, no, I don't mean that. I mean, he's so much better in that slightly more attacking role.
He is, but then if you play a 6 and 2 8s, what do you do with a 10?
Well, exactly. I know.
You know, it's not just no Phil Foden, which I wouldn't argue with. It's no Cole Palmer as well.
I know.
You know, or a Morgan Rogers or
Morgan
Gibbs White. Absolutely. So he's got some questions to do, and it was interesting when that conversation he had with Piercy and Adrian Durham, when it was like, what player would you like to be English? He said Rodri. Says everything.
Okay, of before we break, of that lot, that England under-21s midfield lot, who's most like Rodri? Whose game is it Anderson? Is it Wharton? Because he just doesn't seem to fancy Wharton, does he?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. Wharton plays that role, obviously in a 3-4-2-1. But he is one of the sort of 2 central midfielders. But as you've said, Elliot Anderson can do that as well. And you know, it's apples and pears, really, isn't it? It's like who does he prefer? I don't know. The question is he willing to give them a chance?
And this is the thing. I look at Thomas Tuchel, and despite the fact I think he's charismatic, I love listening to him, I just don't think that, sadly, I don't think he's going to pick any of these sort of young under-21 stars which are being bled through. And unfortunately, that is going to be a great source of frustration for England fans. However, up next, we are going to get you smiling on the Sunday session. This is talkSPORT with me, Max Scott, and Scott Minto.
Sounds of the weekend on the Sunday session on talkSPORT.
Yeah, that's American Authors with Best Day of My Life. That's for Jonathan Rowe scoring the winner in the England under-21s. And then we've got Boys a Liar by Pink Pantheress, sent in by Tracy, the Celtic fan. This is regarding Jake Paul, who of course won his fight last night, but he did in the build-up liken himself to Muhammad Ali, Scott, which I think is a little bit of a fib, isn't it?
I've got to be honest with you, I saw the face-off. I looked at Chavez Jr. and I thought, you haven't been in the gym very much.
Yeah.
You know, so
I know,
obviously he's picking his fight as well, isn't he?
He is indeed. Now, one thing I'll say, look, clearly Jake Paul couldn't lace the boots of the great Muhammad Ali, but he has got himself in shape, and he's got himself, you know, he can throw a couple of punches, to be fair to him.
Listen, for a YouTuber, he's probably the best one out there. And again, you know, that's what happens. You know, these young professional boxers get managed.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
I mean,
we'll
look,
see where he can go.
Look, he's not like Muhammad Ali, but I would not want to take a punch off Jake Paul.
Let's forget about the Muhammad Ali shout.
Absolutely. Right, now it's time for this.
When you're smiling, the whole world, it smiles with you.
Okay, everybody, this week we'll kick off Smiles with the highly esteemed Nobel Peace Prize winner, Malala Yousafzai. She's launched an initiative called Recess, a global campaign aimed at advancing women's and girls' rights through greater participation and investment in sports. Backed by legends like Billie Jean King and Ilana Kloss, Recess is jumping headfirst into the world of women's sports, from big league action in the NWSL and WNBA to getting more girls in the game at grassroots level. Why? Well, because right now, girls are dropping out of sports twice as fast as boys by the age of 18, thanks to outdated stigma and not enough chances to play. But Recess is here to flip the script, showing the world that women's sports aren't just inspiring, they're also seriously good business. Not only is the mission is inspiring, so is the champion behind it, called Malala Yousafzai, and if she's someone that cannot inspire you, then honestly, who else could? Scott, what I would say, in my former career as a teacher, head of year, deputy head teacher, I worked at a fantastic school, secondary school down in Bournemouth, the PE department, led by, and I'm going to name check her, Sarah Bowen. They did incredible stuff for the girls in our school in terms of participation in sports, multiple county champions, and it is just amazing to see when everybody's getting involved and girls are feeling like, yeah, this belongs to us. They were phenomenal athletes.
Yeah, and well done, Mrs. Bowen. Did you say?
That's it. Yeah.
Well done. I mean, it is interesting and sad that they're dropping out of sport twice as fast as boys by the age of, is it 14? 14. I've got 3 kids, they're all teenagers, and sometimes they can be Kevin the teenager, but I think you've got to engage with them. You've got to make sure that they're happy doing what they're doing, and that's down to the coaching.
Absolutely.
The teaching, coaching, call it what you will. So, well done. It's a great initiative. Okay, when you're labelled Manchester United's worst goalkeeper ever, what do you do? Well, Andre Onana apparently takes off his gloves and hits the pitch back home in Cameroon, but can you guess in what position? Well, it says outfield, so it doesn't actually say a position. Maybe it was a 7-a-side or something like that. Onana surprised locals in Cameroon by joining a casual game as an outfield player, looking relaxed and smiling despite a tough season, having been criticised heavily for errors in the Europa League final. Back home on the break, Onana turned down offers from AS Monaco and is determined to succeed at United, even as the club considers revamping their goalkeeping options. Aston Villa's Emi Martinez is interested but priced out by wage demands, so United may bring in a cheaper competitor to push Onana rather than replace him outright. Meanwhile, manager Ruben Amorim is focusing on strengthening the forward line, recently signing Mateus Cunha, while fans have joked that Onana's outfield skills might earn him a spot up front. What do you think, Max? Could we see Onana become Manchester United's new striker? Certainly need one.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the competition currently in the squad, he'd probably do all right, really, wouldn't he? Stick him up top.
Do you know I played with David James, who when we were playing any kind of like 5-a-sides or whatever, he didn't want to be in goal.
Well, of course, Piercy stuck him up top, didn't he, for City?
Brought him on. Yeah.
I mean,
incredible.
You've got a feel for Onana. I mean, he clearly is desperate to play for United, but do you know what strikes me at the minute? It's just that the players that are on these massive wages that clearly need to move on, clearly need to go to new clubs, but are unwilling to waver on their wages. And I know, look, it's life-changing money and that's what they're used to. They've got a lot of outgoings, but just go and play football. Take a wage cut.
But Max, I've heard that's the same about you. I've heard you on £200 a week here at talkSPORT, and you're saying I ain't going anywhere unless you pay me up.
I'm not going anywhere for the love of the game, Scott. I love it here at talkSPORT.
That's what it is.
Okay, now let's take a look across the globe to the British and Irish Lions. I tell you what, I'm buzzing about the Lions talk. Cannot wait. And this is after their incredible 54-7 victory over Western Force yesterday. British and Irish Lion Mac Hansen, born in Canberra but obviously playing for Ireland, says he has zero regrets about his decision. In fact, he's described it as living the dream, being on tour with the lads. The 27-year-old winger, who qualifies for Ireland through his Cork-born mum, even has a tattoo specifically for this tour. Any guesses what it could be? Are you ready for this?
Don't want to.
It's none other than head coach Andy Farrell, inked right on onto his right leg.
Wow.
Now, this wasn't just a spontaneous move. It came as a result of a Grand Slam victory bet. Hansen called it not too bad and said that it's here to stay, a testament to Farrell's positive impact on the team.
I should have got Harry Redknapp then.
You should. Yeah. Well, exactly.
Or Graham Souness.
Do you know what? I was close to getting a Steve Cooper tattoo when Forest got parade, but I sobered up and decided it probably wasn't the best for my career, particularly as talkSPORT is now on screen, smart TV, YouTube. You can tune in right now. Now, Hansen's first Lions tour started in Australia. It feels like an alternative universe to him, especially since he watched the Lions play in Canberra as a kid. He says moving to Europe was the best decision he's ever made, creating a new life full of friends and family. His Aussie mates better support the Lions now or no tickets for them. And after a tough loss to Argentina, Hansen insists the Lions should win every game with their star-studded squad. No excuses. Now, Scott, if you had to get a tattoo of a sports legend,
oh my goodness,
who would it be?
Ooh, I think it would either be. I mean, look, football's my sport. So, and I think the best players ever to grace this planet are
Ryan Yates.
It could be.
Yeah. Who else other than Ryan
Archie Gemmell?
Archie Gemmell,
yeah, we mentioned
John
him
Robertson,
earlier.
Viv Anderson.
Yeah, absolutely. John Robertson, what a player. No, I would. It would either be Diego Maradona or Lionel Messi. For me, they're the best two players.
Where would you get it? On the back? On the neck?
No, I'd get it on my calf.
Okay, discreet. Although
not on the beach.
On all your golfing tours, it'd be there for show, wouldn't it?
It would be, yeah. It'd be able to see it. But if you get a tattoo, you've got to be proud of it, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to be. Look, if I got a Manex tattoo, Ryan Yates, when he celebrated when we won the penalty shootout in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup against Brighton, there's a picture of him, and it's actually my screensaver on my laptop. I'd get that across my chest.
Would you?
Ryan Yates, number 22.
Oh, blimey. So what if you win the Europa Conference League then?
I'd just get my whole body covered in Ryan Yates.
What about the team photo on the back?
Yeah, across my back.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to the gym nowadays, Scott, so my back's getting broader.
Yeah.
Can fit all the assistants in as well.
The Forest squad's getting bigger.
Well, Marinakis is bankrolling us to European glory, mate, I'm telling you now.
OK, despite much controversy this week over the heat in the US, Manchester City are thriving in Florida, cruising through their group with a dominant 5-2 win against Juventus that sees them top Group G. City's star striker Erling Haaland made headlines as he stole the spotlight in Orlando as he netted his 300th career goal before turning 25. That's outrageous.
No, what?
The Norwegian striker came off the bench in the second half and in true Haaland fashion found the net thanks to a lucky deflection off his leg. Do you know what? I covered that game.
Yeah.
How lucky was that, by the way?
I know.
Left foot,
right place, right time.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it's about. Nevertheless, proving once again that when it comes to goals, they all count. His milestone capped off an impressive group stage for City, who scored 13 times across 3 wins while conceding just twice. The Florida heat and tropical downpour didn't slow them down with additional goals from Doku, Foden and Savinho. Topping the group now keeps them in their Boca Raton race and away from giants like Bayern and PSG, with Haaland hitting historic numbers and City finding their rhythm. Could a trophy be on the horizon in the very near future?
It has to be. You look at how they've strengthened. You know, Pep Guardiola, he was down last season, but he's never out, is he? He's never out.
Do you know what I think? I think as much as I would love to see Chelsea in the final, I think it's a PSG City final.
Yeah.
It's a good one, that.
And that is an absolute belter of a final. Can't wait. And we will, of course, be bringing you that live on talkSPORT. Right, this is the Sunday session on talkSPORT with me, Max Scott, and the wonderful Scott Minto. Yes, the Scott duo. And up next, we'll be taking a look at all the big transfers to keep an eye out for in the coming days, including a huge update on a Premier League star who's on Liverpool's radar.
Everyone knows there are 20 managers in the Premier League, yeah? Well, actually, no. Around 3/4 of them are not managers. The terms manager and head coach are often used interchangeably to describe Premier League bosses, but they're actually two different jobs. So let's explain how and why. For years, fans referred to Mikel Arteta as Arsenal's manager, but I'm afraid technically...
I don't think so, no.
From his first day on the job, he was the Gunners' head coach. Let's pick a random moment in time, February 2025. Only 6 Premier League bosses actually held the official title of manager rather than head coach. Man City's Pep Guardiola, David Moyes of Everton, Ipswich boss Kieran McKenna, Southampton's Ivan Juric, Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace and Leicester's Ruud van Nistelrooy were the only actual managers of their respective teams. Everyone else? That's right, head coach, including Ruben Amorim at Man United. He took over from Erik ten Hag, a man who had held the title of manager. Might come as a surprise that Amorim's appointment marked the first time ever that Man United had a head coach instead of a manager. But to understand why they made that decision, you also have to get what the difference is between a head coach and a manager. A manager's got a huge range of responsibilities. They're not just in charge of training and player lineups, they're also heavily involved in player sales and transfers. Critical stuff. But a head coach's role is far more focused on team training and performance on the pitch. So whereas Ten Hag was highly involved with decisions around transfers during his tenure, the intention was that Amorim wouldn't be, at least not on the same level. And as the sporting structure at Man United changed under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, people like Sir Dave Brailsford took charge of transfers instead. How all those roles play out in practice may be slightly different at different clubs though. On the other hand, the contracts of actual managers like Pep or Moyes had no limits on their job role and their involvement with transfers and contracts. But those guys are actually in the minority now, and it's a change that's happened pretty quickly. In 2019, there were only 6 head coaches in the Premier League, but by 2025 there were 14. A clear indication that more and more clubs are moving towards a model where the guy in charge is actually only really in charge on the pitch. And the way things are going, it might not be long before all 20 clubs have got head coaches, and the job position of football manager in the top flight is no more.
Good afternoon, how are we? This is the Sunday session on talkSPORT. I'm your host, Max Scott. Alongside me is former Chelsea and Benfica defender Scott Minto. We've got loads more to come up on the show. We're going to bring you a big British and Irish Lions update with our very own rugby correspondent Alfie Reynolds. Of course, talkSPORT is the home to that exclusive Lions coverage as well. We're going to be delving deep into the changes to the Premier League's TV coverage. Managers doing half-time interviews, substitutes, players that have been hiked off are going to be giving interviews as well. I'm going to be asking Scott Minto what he thinks about that. And of course, we've got a big transfer update, some breaking transfer news. So this is the Sunday session live on talkSPORT. Well, let's get straight into that then, shall we? The transfer window is in full swing, and to bring us up to date with all the big stories is talkSPORT's Ben Jacobs, who joins us now. Ben, what have you got for us?
Well, guys, there's plenty going on. Jamie Gittens is the latest deal to be finalised. He's passed his Chelsea medical and will sign a 7-year contract. That was actually agreed before the Club World Cup, but now we've got a club-to-club agreement for £55 million, and Chelsea are going to land their top left-sided target, having also looked at Malik Fofana and Alejandro Garnacho. And the Blues might not be done yet. They are very firmly in the mix for Brighton's João Pedro. And unlike Gittens, who's cup-tied for the Club World Cup because he's featured for Dortmund, there is a possibility, if Chelsea are quick, that they could agree a fee for João Pedro with Brighton and still register him for the back end of the Club World Cup. It won't be the absolute priority, and I don't expect Chelsea to do anything rash to force it through, but there are still a few days remaining. July the 3rd is the cut-off if players are to feature in the Club World Cup. Chelsea and Newcastle both at the table for João Pedro. Brighton, in the last 48 hours, as talkSPORT exclusively revealed, have rejected 2 bids in excess of £50 million. Now, Brighton do not give asking prices to suitors. They're very difficult to negotiate with. But the feeling is that something in excess of £60 million might be necessary for success. Keep an eye also on the Darwin Núñez situation. Napoli still want to sign the player. In fact, he's their top target. And Núñez very much open to the move and given priority to Napoli over Saudi Arabia. But Liverpool are holding out for €70 million or more, because that's the same number that they rejected in January when Al Nassr came calling. And speaking of Saudi Arabia, Luis Diaz remains an Al Nassr target. Diaz actually preferred a move to Barcelona if he was to leave Liverpool. Barca made an approach. Liverpool said not for sale. And that stance is relatively firm at the moment, but it'll be interesting to see if Al Nassr place a bid, as would be expected, of in excess of €85 million. If that kind of valuation, being far more than Barcelona were prepared to offer, changes Liverpool's position. It's unclear at this stage whether Diaz would be prepared to go to Saudi Arabia. Now, Al Nassr's really interesting because Cristiano Ronaldo's just renewed 2-year contract. He's got equity in the club. He'll play a big role in recruitment, and Al Nassr want a series of star signings to compete and effectively keep Ronaldo happy. Jorge Jesus, the former Al Hilal boss, is coming in as manager. And if they can't get Luis Diaz, then I'm told Gabriel Martinelli and still Karim Matoma, who rejected them in January from Brighton, are 2 other possibilities on that left-hand side.
Crikey Moses, so much going on there.
Do you know what? I've got to say, Max, could you imagine being a mate of Cristiano Ronaldo? And, you know, you're a decent footballer, but not a great one, but he's in charge of recruitment. Come on. Cristiano, come on.
I know, absolutely.
Give me a couple of mil, will you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, if you'd have watched me at the talkSPORT trophy, actually, scoring the deciding goal last year, I reckon I could get a call up for Al Nassr, to be fair. Now, look, I want to go, Ben, quickly. Can you tell us what's the latest with Brian Mbeumo to United? Because this one seems to be taking forever.
Well, Manchester United remain in positive and productive talks with Brentford over Brian Mbeumo, and it still could move relatively quickly, which is why Manchester United had earmarked this coming week for a potential medical, without, of course, booking it, because you can only do that when the deal is fully agreed. So we'll have to wait and see what the next few days brings. But Manchester United is still really calm about the situation. The first bid and the second bid, in terms of the rejections, are very different stories. 45 million plus 10 million in add-ons was rejected out of hand. The second bid, as we revealed on talkSPORT exclusively, was £55 million and 7.5 million in add-ons. And that takes you to the same total as Matheus Cunha. But crucially, Cunha is 62.5 million guaranteed as per his release clause. This is the same valuation, but including the add-ons. And Brentford's perspective is they want about 62.5 million, but guaranteed, which means either Manchester United would have to raise the guaranteed part, or alternatively make the overall structure of the deal more appealing, maybe by leaving it relatively as is, but making the add-ons more gettable, or amending the payment terms to make them a bit more preferable for Brentford. And a lot of the discussions are around those finer points of add-ons and payment schedules. The bones of a deal are still there. So you can call 55 million plus 7.5 million in add-ons rejected, because of course the deal isn't done. But really they're finessing it and building upon that, and it is an ongoing and quite fluid conversation, which is why Manchester United are still very hopeful that this is going to move quickly, and their aim remains exactly the same. They want to get Mbeumo done before they return to pre-season on July the 7th. There's still some confidence that that is possible at this stage, and it's very normal as well when you make a bid, having spoken for quite some time before it, to feel quite a lot of confidence that large parts of what you put down are acceptable. So we have to say it hasn't been greenlit yet, which means that they will need to place the third offer now. But Manchester United still feel they're not far off. And Mbeumo only wants Manchester United and is still waiting to see whether imminently in the coming week he will get that permission to undergo his medical.
Thanks so much, Ben, as ever, always right across everything. Now, just a couple more pieces of transfer news for you Premier League fans. I mean, where to start? I think this is the main one. I mean, talkSPORT understands Liverpool will only advance their interest in Crystal Palace captain Mark Gahey if the price drops significantly south of £45 million. You also heard in Emma Smith's bulletin at the top of the hour regarding Jarell Quansah. We understand he's undergoing his medical at Bayer Leverkusen, a total package of £40 million. But interestingly, there is a buyback clause in that contract. So Liverpool sort of parting ways with Quansah, but still very much fond of him. And then, of course, the news breaking from Dominic Calvert-Lewin earlier today that he's confirmed he is leaving Everton after 9 years. He's thanked the club, saying he's not a decision he took lightly. Of course, in his best season in 2020-2021, he scored 25 goals. Obviously, only managed just 3 in the most recent campaign. So we've had a bit of a transfer dump of information there, Scott. Which one catches your eye?
Well, just on Calvert-Lewin, I mean, it's such a shame, isn't it? Because he had that great season under Carlo Ancelotti, as you've just mentioned there, but he's only scored 18 goals since then. That's in 4 years. Now, you can say, well, how many games has he played? But that's a point in itself, because he's been injured a lot. You have to rely on players coming in. So I wish him all the best. When he's on form, on fire, he's a very, very good Premier League striker.
Absolutely, yeah. Dangerous.
But I think he's going to have to be very realistic about what options are and the wages he'll be on. So again,
and the role he'll have.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it may even be a pay-as-you-play, that type of thing, which no player particularly wants. But I think if he wants to stay in the Premier League, he might well have to do that. Bryan Mbeumo is another one. I mean, that seems to be dragging on for a long time, doesn't it? I understand where Brentford's coming from. Cunha's gone for 62.5. They want at least that. But I just, from a Manchester United point of view, they need a striker. That's what they need. Yeah. They need a striker.
Yeah.
I think it was too much, and I said it at the time for Rasmus Højlund. He didn't even hit double figures in the season he was in Italy. So for a young lad, the biggest club in the country, with all the pressure trying to get back to where they were, that shirt probably weighs about 5 kilos each time someone puts it on.
Yeah.
So they've gone for Mbeumo, who I really like, by the way. I really do. And I think Cunha is an incredible talent. But there's no doubt about it, he's a maverick, and he's almost the type of character that Manchester United don't want, or the type of player they want out that was already there.
I understand that, but I totally understand your concerns about his attitude. But do Manchester United not need somebody that can grab the ball by the horns and sort of rip him out of this complete state they're in?
Well, the last 5 years they've been signing players that they thought would have that, and it's not happened. And then what's happened? Are they able to bounce back, or they've gone the other way? And most of them have gone the other way. Bruno Fernandes has carried that team for the last 5 years. He's not just been United's best player, he's been one of the Premier League's best players. So,
but if he's going into a dressing room, let's say hypothetical situation, Scott, Marcus Rashford doesn't get his move to Barcelona because they've already got Rafinha. They look like they're going to get Nico Williams, so he's still at Carrington. Alejandro Garnacho, snotty-nosed teenager, he's still there after wearing Rashford's Villa shirt. You've then got Cunha coming into that environment, and we are a product of our environment. We are the company that we keep. Is there not a risk that culture turns even more toxic if they can't offload the likes of Rashford, the likes of Garnacho?
Well, that's my point. You want someone like a Bryan Mbeumo. I think he's a big talent. I think he's completely overachieved at Brentford. I think he's ready to take the next step.
Definitely.
A bit like Thomas Frank, and he's obviously from managerial level going to Spurs. And you know that even when things aren't right, and I've watched a lot of Brentford, even when he's not playing particularly well, he will always track back, he'll always work hard. And you get the feeling with that, with Manchester United, everything's times 10, he'll work times 10 harder. Whereas with Cunha, I'm still waiting. I'm going to wait to see how this season goes. Massive talent. But even just from that sort of 3-4-2-1 system as well, Brian Mbeumo's probably a number 10. He's not a striker. Cunha's a number 10. Bruno Fernandes is a number 10. You know, and he's not quite as effective playing as one of those two holding midfielders. So I just feel it's the position that they don't particularly need. They need the striker. That's what they need. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
I mean, they're totally valid concerns. But one thing I would say, I've just got this feeling about Matheus Cunha that when we talk about the Manchester United shirt weighing heavy on some players, I've got a feeling that it's the type of shirt for Matheus Cunha where he's going to grow into that. And he's going to relish the opportunity at Old Trafford of being the person that spearheads them out of the situation they're in. Right, next on the Sunday session.
I came in like a wrecking ball. I never hit so hard.
Yeah, that's Miley Cyrus's Wrecking Ball. This is sent in by Simon, the England under-21s mega fan, referencing Jake Paul's big victory last night. I mean, you could also use it to describe Jonathan Rowe scoring that winner, destroying the German dreams of defeating England in that final. Right, this is the Sunday session on talkSPORT, and up next we'll be sticking with the transfer window but delving deeper into my team, the mighty Nottingham Forest, as well as Scott's side Chelsea. This is talkSPORT, the Sunday session.
Did you ever say I just walked away?
Sounds of the weekend on the Sunday session on talkSPORT.
You know you got to be strong.
What a banger.
Good one, Gabrielle. Very good.
So we got Dreams by Gabrielle, referencing Jonathan Rowe's heroic winner. Story from the bottom to the top. He struggled and now he's won the under-21 championship for England. What a player, what a goal. And then of course McFadden and Whitehead, ain't no stopping us now.
Even better.
That was sent in by Jonathan, the Arsenal fan, referencing Jake Paul. He clearly thinks nobody can stop him. He's been comparing himself to the late great Muhammad Ali. Absolute madness. It is indeed. But they are the sounds from the weekend. Make sure you keep those texts and suggestions coming in. 81089 and 03717223344 on WhatsApp. I tell you what, there ain't no stopping Evangelos Marinakis and Nuno Espirito Santo.
There we go.
And Nottingham Forest charge for European glory. I've got it in my calendar dates. We have, like you did last season, Forest have to qualify for the Conference League. Which
Yeah.
I take as a bit of an insult almost. And I know that sort of total arrogance, that sort of Europe or Premier League arrogance on the tournament. But I think what Forest did last season, surely we get a bye straight into the tournament.
Well, I don't think it is. Well, I'll go one step further on the arrogance. I think that any Premier League side that enters that competition should win the competition. I mean, I think Villa missed a trick when they lost in the semi-finals. Obviously, Chelsea did it. Their first difficult game. I'm not going to mention the other teams they played. I don't want to be disrespectful, but League One at best, some of them. And then the most difficult game, one difficult game was the final where they were 1-0 down at half-time, came back and won it. Obviously, West Ham won it 2 years ago. I was in Prague, and that was an amazing experience as well. So really pleased for them.
Yeah.
Pressure on Forest. You're representing the Premier League now. This is listen, at the Champions League, you're talking about the best teams in the world, so they can play anywhere. Europa League, we've just seen 2 English teams playing in the final. I don't think they was particularly strong, but my point is, the further you go down, if the strength of the Premier League is that way, that we are that much stronger than everyone else, the third tier of European football, the Premier League side should win.
Totally.
So what do you think?
Look, I was obviously devastated, having been 3rd and 4th all season, for Forest not to get Champions League, and I'd be lying if I told you that I wasn't. But at the same time, 2 things can be true at once. I very quickly got used to the fact that Forest are going to be in the Conference League, and it is a competition that I don't think is... It's obviously going to be challenging. You're going to be travelling all over Europe. We've not been doing that for 30 years, and so that's going to take its toll. But I think if Forest win the Champions League, there would be a significant risk that it derail our season.
Yeah. It won't be that challenging, the Conference League.
And it won't be as challenging.
Yeah.
And to get onto the topic of transfers, Evangelos Marinakis, say what you want about him. And we've got to a point now, I think, as Forest fans, where you can say what you want about Marinakis. He's ours. He's taken us to this position in the league. He's bankrolled us, backed us, and here we are, and he's continuing to do it. talkSPORT understands that Igor Jesus, who, according to Tim Vickery, is the player of the tournament so far in the Club World Cup. Of course, they've just got knocked out, Botafogo to Palmeiras. But he's compared him to a modern-day Didier Drogba.
I know. Listen, I think...
And he's signing for the Mighty Reds.
Tim is brilliant, but that's a big statement. That's a big statement.
I bow to his superior South American football knowledge.
So do I.
So I will accept it as gospel, and that we understand that is agreed in principle. He's pretty much a Nottingham Forest player. We're waiting for that to be revealed. And I think that is exactly what Forest need. When you look at... I think Forest have one of the top 3 centre-back pairings in the Premier League. Yeah. And I'm not saying that brazenly. I do believe that Murillo and Milenkovic, both of them absolute steals. Forest dipping into that South American market, that Latin American market really well. With Igor Jesus coming in, it's what we need, because Chris Wood had the season of his life. He is an integral part of the leadership team at Forest, but you need backup. And with Taiwo Awoniyi, bless him, rickety, getting injured all the time, numerous sort of operations, he's really struggled with that. We need a top-class striker coming in, and Igor Jesus can prove that, whether he can do it at the Premier League. And so I'm really excited about that. I mean, where would you say Forest, where else we need to strengthen?
Well, I mean, definitely striker, because as you say about Chris Woods, and I remember covering him when he was at Leeds, and he had a great season, and I think he's done really well since. But the age he's at, I don't want to be disrespectful in any way, but I don't think he's going to be able to keep that up. In terms of what he's done. So he needs that. I mean, first of all, you need to keep your best players. That's the important thing, and make sure that...
On that, it was believed, wasn't it, that Manchester City were very interested in Morgan Gibbs-White, but Mr. Marinakis put £100 million price tag on his head and said, there it is. Man City have, fair play to them, gone and got Reinders and Cherky. They've done their business really well, but it means that we keep our star man. I expect Forest to offer him another contract extension, give him those wages that definitely reflect his role in the team and in the Premier League. But another one is Anthony Elanga. He's been integral. That goal he scored against Manchester United, where he ran the length of the pitch in about 9 seconds with the ball at his feet. Newcastle are heavily interested. A £45 million bid was rejected by Forest, who very sternly said, look, he's £60 million, but we don't want to sell. That is going to be key to Forest. Like you say, he's keeping him. But I think that again, for Elanga's development, playing Conference League, increasing sort of his reps, his goals, his minutes, I think that it's a wise move for Forest to hold stern on him and keep him. But another one, I don't know how I think about this, Scott, because just about half an hour ago I was criticising Thomas Tuchel for including Jordan Henderson in the squad. There have been, brief rumours that perhaps Forest are interested in signing Jordan Henderson.
Go on. So?
I don't want him anywhere near the England squad, but get him in that Forest squad because I think it fits. I don't think that he's at the level to play for England in a World Cup.
Just wait till he's been playing for 3 months at Forest. You'd be saying Henderson for England.
Maybe so, but I stand by this. I stand by this, right? Ryan Yates needs to be ahead of Jordan Henderson if he's anywhere near the England squad, right? Ryan Yates is absolutely integral to that. But I would take Henderson at Forest, no doubt. The leadership, the standards, the experience going into Europe, being able to sort of not be bit part, but start some games, come off the bench on others. I think it'd be a great signing for Forest. And, I think there would be stern competition with Sunderland, him going back to his boyhood club potentially. Yep. Do you think Henderson to Forest would make sense?
I think Henderson, I respect him a lot. And again, I having been in the dressing room for 20 years, you cannot underestimate how important it is, a proper, professional. I mean, Manchester United have needed that for how long? Over a decade. Talk about Bruno Fernandes carrying United, but in the dressing room, can you imagine Roy Keane seeing some of the stuff that's gone in the last decade? No, forget about Keane, Scholes, Giggs, Ferdinand, whatever, Vidic. So I definitely think striker. I think that's brilliant. You might need another winger, just almost as backup.
Yeah.
Put Jordan Henderson in there. I love Onana as a fullback. I think he's absolutely brilliant.
I think he was one of the best in the league last season.
I interviewed him after a game actually, and when interviewed, it was the Forest City game. So I interviewed Pep, Nuno, and him, and he just seemed like a great lad.
Yeah, he's full of life.
And I know it's not just about whether you're a good lad or not, but again, I go back to that dressing room when things aren't going particularly well. Yeah. What's he going to be like? Are you going to have someone who the glass is half full rather than half empty?
That's what's made Forest so successful. We are a team greater than the sum of our parts. And
absolutely.
It's characters like Olorani that make that. Look, final word on Jordan Henderson. I think in a World Cup tournament, my opinion is I don't think you need him in that squad. But over a long season for Nottingham Forest, with Europe, with domestic football, etc., I think he'd be an absolute steal. But enough about Forest. We have to talk about Chelsea. We heard Ben Jacobs earlier. There's so much going on. You've got João Pedro potentially being able to even play in the Club World Cup if he's signed before the deadline, I think on Thursday. It looks like Gittins is over the line. What do you make of Chelsea's movements in the transfer market?
I've been saying for a long time, and I feel like I've been sort of banging my head against the wall, really, that Chelsea needs... I understand their policy, and their policy is what they want to do. But at what point do they want to start winning major trophies? Yeah. Europa Conference League was great. We already discussed it, a third tier of European football. I think that a Premier League side should be one of, if not the favourites for it, and especially Chelsea. But I look at them. They need a top keeper, top centre-half, and they needed a top striker. They've got Liam Delap, absolute no-brainer, £30 million. I personally wanted to see like an experienced, a Gyökeres going for that type of player, Victor Osimhen, that type of player. But Liam Delap, an absolute steal. I do get the Jamie Gittins. João Pedro is another attacking midfielder. I'm not sure they needed two, but you look at Mudryk, you look at Jadon Sancho. They've now gone back. But for me, they had the youngest average starting 11 in the Premier League by 18 months per player, and the youngest average starting 11 in the history of the Premier League. Now, I'm not going to use that phrase, you can't win anything with kids, but what I will say is I go back to the Jordan Henderson. I'm not saying Chelsea should sign him, but having that experience, a Thiago Silva, Antonio Rudiger, John Terry, not many of them around, but there are experienced players that can just guide you through both on and off the pitch, because there's a lot of talented players. And it's one thing to combine the Premier League and the Europa Conference League, where actually it was almost a different 11 each time they played in Europe, and the Champions League and the Premier League. It's going to be a very difficult season for Chelsea, especially coming off the back of this tournament as well. Enzo Maresca's still learning as a manager. That was only his first season in the top flight as a manager. And I sort of defend him because I don't want Chelsea to go down the route of continually sacking managers. And people turn around and say, well, Abramovich did that, but he gave them ready-made world-class players. That's not what this Chelsea hierarchy are doing. So just sprinkle it with some senior pros, some really experienced players, because I genuinely believe this is going to be a tough year. I've said this before. I will take the final placing of the Champions League in the Premier League next season for Chelsea, because I think it's going to be difficult to combine the two.
I couldn't agree more, Scott. Makes total sense. Right, don't go anywhere. Still plenty to come on the Sunday session as we bring you the latest from the British and Irish Lions and big changes to Premier League TV coverage.
It's not often you associate fan power with Chelsea Football Club, but one of the shining examples of it lies with a group called the Chelsea Pitch Owners. And they've proved to be the thorn in the side of owners past and present who've been dead set on moving stadiums to a larger, more lucrative piece of land. Essentially, the supporters group holds the freehold to the land on which Stamford Bridge sits. Former owner Ken Bates set it up at a time where some unruly property developers tried to evict the club from their ground. In order to prevent this, he established the CPO as a company that owned the pitch and offered the fans the chance to buy a share for £100. As well as that, they also own the rights to the name Chelsea Football Club, so if any owner wants to take them elsewhere, they can't be called Chelsea without the approval from the CPO. Now, in 2011, Roman Abramovich tried and failed to move them away from Stamford Bridge, and this has set a precedent for Todd Bowley and the current power brokers at Chelsea. They know any plan which involves moving from Stamford Bridge will require CPO approval from the now 13,000 fans who own it. There are fans who are concerned that if they stay at the bridge, they'll be left behind their domestic and European rivals who are moving to more commercially successful stadiums. But for the heritage and history lovers, Stamford Bridge is one of the iconic English stadiums, and to move away would be a grave mistake. It might not be as flashy as others, but stadiums like it have something about them that cannot be replaced. One thing's for sure, if Bowley wants to take Chelsea away from their home, he'll have to go through the CPO first.
Good afternoon, you're listening to the Sunday session on talkSPORT with me, Max Scott, alongside Scott Minto. We've got loads more to come. We're going to be having a British and Irish Lions update from our very own rugby correspondent Alfie Reynolds, who is himself down under following Andy Farrell and his men. But first we're going to get an update from the Austrian Grand Prix with Piers Pryor. What's the latest, Piers?
Yeah, we're coming towards the conclusion of the race. Lap 63 of 70 at the moment. No major drama or anything changed since the first round of pit stops and around lap 20-ish. It's still Norris who leads from Piastri. Those two are clear of the rest of the field. The Ferraris, Leclerc and Hamilton, third and fourth. However, because Piastri pitted later in the second stop, it means that Piastri's got better tyres and he's closing in fairly quickly. We could have a bit of a grandstand finish to the Austrian Grand Prix.
Fantastic stuff, Piers. Thank you very much. We will get an update from Piers later on in the show as and when the action happens at the Austrian Grand Prix. Right now, we are joined by talkSPORT's British and Irish Lions reporter Alfie Reynolds to give us the latest after the Lions' sensational 54-7 victory over Western Force yesterday. Alfie, what have you got for us?
The British and Irish Lions have touched down in Brisbane following their 54-7 victory over the Western Force in Perth on Saturday. They're gearing up for the next tour game against the Queensland Reds on Wednesday. So we're into the part of the tour where there is no let-up. So a first victory on Saturday for the Lions. Is Andy Farrell, the head coach, happy?
The thing for me is to see the improvement within the group internally as well, and we've seen that improvement. There's no doubt about that this week. Whether that was going to transfer to a performance, you're not quite sure until the performance is had. Some of it did, some of it didn't, but I can see behind the scenes that we're certainly getting better.
Farrell will announce the team to play the Reds tomorrow. We expect they'll pose a sterner test. A big question will be, how is Thomas Williams? The Welsh scrum half went off injured yesterday. And can the Lions do a better job of collecting restarts? That was an issue against the Force, but the second row, Ollie Chesham, told me after the game that they're not worried about it.
One of those things that I think is a real unit part of the game, and people don't realise that. It's a proper unit skill. And we'll just have to pay some due diligence to that and try and work in those mini units to get that right. And I'm sure we will. You look at the calibre of the players we've got, and generally speaking, the guys that we've got in the squad are, respectively unbelievable in that area. But it's coming together and really developing that skill as a group.
Even though the Lions have 4 tour games to go until the start of the Test series, that opener against Australia will be here in just under 3 weeks.
Cheers, Alfie. Brilliant stuff. That's Alfie Reynolds, our rugby correspondent, who is down under in Australia following the Lions. Remember, the action continues to come thick and fast as they travel across the country to Brisbane to face the Queensland Reds, exclusively on talkSPORT 2 on Wednesday at 11 a.m. And we'll be bringing you live commentary of all 3 test matches, plus the warm-up games. And remember, talkSPORT is the only place on national radio where you can follow all of the Lions action. There's also a Lions Uncaged live podcast available on all of the usual podcast places too. Scott, I know you are across all of the football all the time, but it must be nice occasionally to sort of, I guess, take your brain out of football and then into something like the Lions Tour, which is just one of those special tournaments that transcends, I guess, sort of national rivalry.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Max, and Sam, we discussed this on Friday as well with Sam Matterface. I've got 3 young kids, or young teenagers anyway. It's carnage in the Minto household. So, I don't watch as much football as I like, let alone other sports as well. Cricket. Cricket was my second sport. But I think when you get to the Lions, one thing I can do is stick the old AirPods in and listen to talkSPORT. And that's what I will be doing as I go around the house and find it. Because I actually feel, even growing up as a kid, radio commentary was just there's something special. Yeah. Something special about it, even over sort of TV side of things. So, look, the Lions is special. Andy Farrell wasn't happy what he saw against Argentina. Yeah. What do I know? But I think that's a difficult first game against a team that's ranked 5th in the world.
Totally.
But look, there'll be positives there. But I think it's something that Western Force, one of the worst sides they'll be playing on this trip. Yeah. That's about par, and that should have happened. So he's a winner, though, isn't he? So that's what he wants from his side. He wants to set high standards.
The thing that fascinates me, the unique challenge of the Lions, is that yes, you've got the best from Britain and Ireland, right? That, of course, that's the name of the game. But they never play with each other. They don't have those sort of patterns of play, and they're not used to playing with one another. And so the challenge is to get them ready for a tour down under. And when you're not, you'll know as a sports person, as an athlete, that it's not, you don't just snap into gear like that. It takes time. And interestingly, I think there is some criticism from sort of certain rugby quarters that the build-up is too long. And because players, we've just been talking about Thomas Williams, fantastic number 9 Welshman, one of the very few Welshmen in the team. He's pulled up with a hamstring injury. Jamison Gibson, part the best number 9 in the world, has just come back from a glute injury. And having only played 2 games, you're talking about only having 1 scrum half left in the squad potentially. Now, Gibson Park is back in training, but it's a difficult old task for Andy Farrell to knit all that together and then try and make sure in a game like rugby, they're all fit.
Yeah, but If there weren't any games, if they had 1 or 2 warm-up games, then they're straight into it, people say they'd be undercooked.
Exactly.
So, you almost can't win. You can't win unless you win. That's the bottom line. In any management of anything, you have to find a way to win games. Now, what I would say is I think it is the right way because you're right. You look at, say, a Lampard Gerrard, people sort of saying they should be able to play together. And, what they needed was that holding midfielder behind them. So both of them were number 8s. Now, it's down to Andy Farrell to find a way to get these world-class players not just playing individually, but playing as a team. And that's why, listening to Alfie there, the games come thick and fast. I think it's probably what they want to do. Important as well to socialise together. That doesn't mean necessarily say
I think that
the rugby boys how they used to back in the day. Maybe just tone it down a little bit because it is, a different game now. But again, I go back to it. That side of it, away from the game, away from the training pitch, away from the matches, so important. If you can build that kind of camaraderie, then you do give it the extra sort of half yard.
Also, you've got 60,000 Lion fans touring as well. And so you just know that it's such an occasion. One thing I would say is, I've been at talkSPORT about a year and a half now, and I've found
Does it feel longer?
No, it feels like yesterday, Scott. But one thing I'd say, about is I've gotten much more into rugby. I think because I'm constantly and want to be surrounded by football and involved in it even more as part of my career, I've found rugby almost a nice escape because it's still sport. And so literally in the past year, I've really gotten into it. And interestingly, Alfie Reynolds has been a massive part of that. Work a lot with him on talkSPORT too. You should tune into the Lion Uncaged podcast because Alfie Reynolds is brilliant at what he does. He's really got me engaged in the game of rugby. But one thing I wanted to ask you mentioned the Minto household and your kids sort of, being absolutely madness in the house. And I'm presuming they're sport mad. Do they know about Henry Pollock, this 20-year-old who is changing the game, who's sort of burst onto the scene? He's only played 20 minutes for England, got 2 tries. He then gets called up for the Lions. I think he's so good for the game of rugby because although I've got into it recently, rugby is a game that struggles for cash, that, it doesn't have the eyes on it like the Premier League. And I think characters like Henry Pollock are so important for it.
Yeah, the answer is no to that, by the way. Okay. Two girls and one boy, but no, none of them are really sort of massive. One of them sort of more into sport, but still a bit Kevin the teenager at the moment. But no, I think it's what all sports needs. They need that superstar, even football. Lamine Yamal coming in is like, wow, covering Lionel Messi is like, well, we're not going to see Lionel Messi for another 50 years. Well, hold on a minute, we're kind of seeing that already. So Henry Pollock comes in and, Luke Littler and darts and just I think it just adds something which that little bit of stardust, which I think not just in terms of the people who love that particular sport, but others, casual watchers will do that. And, going back to the Lions, I mean, it's such an iconic shirt to wear that you only do it every 4 years and you have to be the best of the best within the UK and Ireland. They're absolutely going to give it 100%. I'd be surprised if we don't win it this time because Australia are not a particularly great side, but we know that they're a very proud nation. And if we're not bang up for it, and if he hasn't got all the combinations right, then they will find us out. So I am looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. But I'm probably not watching as much rugby as I'd like to.
Well, something else we're all looking forward to, as well as the Lions, is the reunion of the century. It's just around the corner, and we're giving you a chance to win a pair of Oasis tickets in Manchester on July the 19th. Yes, you heard that right. Oasis Live 25 is sold out, but talkSPORT can get you in. But that's not all. Alongside the tickets, we'll put you up for a night in a hotel and put $5,000 into your back pocket, completely tax-free. Listen up right now for everything you need to know on how to enter.
Alright, kid, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay and $5,000 spending money, all you gotta do is text the word Oasis to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Sorted. Right, here's all the legal stuff. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You've got to have the bill payer's permission or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester, CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com.
Scott, listening to that ad makes my heart break because I obviously can't apply for this competition because I'm an employee of the company.
Of course.
Now, I'm a massive Oasis fan. I tried with a big group of mates to try and get tickets. None of us did, but my sister and brother-in-law are absolute pros at getting tickets, whether it's Glasgow, whether it's big gigs like this.
Okay.
They had a group together trying to get tickets. They managed to get, between them, 16 Oasis tickets.
No.
Right?
Wow.
So I'm thinking, I'm rubbing my hands. I'm in. I didn't get one.
You were number 17.
I'm number 17 on my sister
goodness.
and brother-in-law's Oasis ticket list. So if you're listening, Xantham Vern, I'm expecting a dropout from one of your mates because it was a disgrace. So I'm still, I'm trying to. They're always sort of saying, we've got a few tickets. I'm getting emails, and every single time I'm waiting 20 minutes before the queue opens, and I still don't get it. I'm absolutely
No one's
devastated.
dropping out, mate. You know that.
I know.
Even if they're real, no one. Did you hear Noel Gallagher on the Breakfast Show with Jamie and Jace?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I need to sort of. I'm working on the Breakfast Show tomorrow doing the sports news. I need to try and sort of sweeten them up and say, can you have a word with Noel, please?
Get into Jace. He's clearly got the.
Is that
got
it?
the in?
Okay. All right, I'm going to have to get his number off you after the
Noel had him on toast. Had Jamie on toast. Honestly, it was so funny.
Love it. Right, so remember, you can sign up for that. Oasis giving away those free tickets and $5,000 in your back pocket. Right, next on the Sunday session. Henry, the Borussia Dortmund fan, sending in Brian Adams' roll with the punches in reference to Jake Paul's victory over Chavez Jr. last night. Fair play, Jake Paul. You've done well for a YouTuber, but when are you going to fight a proper pro in his prime? Keep your songs of the week coming in. 03717 223344. Next up, we'll be looking at some of the stranger stories next. This is the Sunday session on talkSPORT.
You got to run. That's what you got to do.
Sounds of the weekend on the Sunday session on talkSPORT.
Yeah, this is the Sunday session on talkSPORT with me, Max Scott, alongside Scott Minto. These are your sounds of the weekend. First off, we had Eye of the Tiger.
You got it. You called it, didn't you?
Yeah, I said this before the show. This is sent in by Tyrone the Bees fan. This is regarding Jonathan Rowe, the hero of England's under-21's final win against Germany. He scored the winner 3-2 in extra time, referring his fantastic story from being a mascot to match winner for his country. And then we've got Good Fight by Kasabian. What a band, by the way. Songs of my youth, Kasabian. Loved it. Sent in by Teddy the Millwall fan regarding Jake Paul's victory over Chavez Jr. They are your sounds of the weekend, but now it's time for this.
Stranger Things on the Sunday session on talkSPORT.
Now we kick off Stranger Things this week with dart star Nathan Aspinall, who took his dart skills to a whole new level by aiming straight for influencer Dean Alex, who had an apple held in his mouth due to losing a bet with a fan. Talk about putting your money where your mouth is. Dean started out all brave and confident, but once Nathan started flexing and warming up, his courage quickly melted away faster than an ice cream on a sunny day. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a dart, but thankfully nobody lost an eye. Dan kept moving away, yelling he might get hit, and honestly, who could blame him? When Nathan finally let the dart fly, it landed perfectly in the apple, causing cheers and relieved hugs all round. Dean might have survived the challenge, but he promised, with all the sincerity of someone who just dodged a bullet, never to do it again. Fans were loving the wild ride. This gave me heart palpitations, and I'm gobsmacked Nathan actually went for it. Now the only question is, how much do you think you'd have to be offered, Scott, to bet on that?
My goodness, enough money to never have to work again. I would be scared seeing that. What about you?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
No. Okay, now this week, I think we have truly been faced with the strangest story. Wrexham FC co-owner Rob McElhenney plans to legally change his name. Any guesses what to?
Not a Scooby.
We'll get a load of this. Rob Mac. Simply a shortened version of his full name, Robert McElhenney III. He revealed in a May interview explaining the change would make his name easier to pronounce globally as their business expands.
Oh, spare me. You're a Hollywood star. Everybody knows you. It's your name.
Exactly.
I've got to tell you what, I've got 5 names.
Have you? Go on.
Max, Douglas, Kit, Batiscombe Scott.
Sorry, what was the last one? Batiscombe.
Batiscombe.
Where did that come from?
It's a lovely story, actually.
Okay.
So my granddad, it was the name of his mother and all the women on his side of the family. All of the men died in the war, all of the Batiscombes. So he took her name, which in the time wasn't the thing you'd do, and gave it to his sons. So we've we've all got double-barreled names in the family.
Oh, that is really
Rob,
nice.
Be proud of your name, mate. Don't
Absolutely.
change it.
And Kit Simons. However, the bizarre decision to simply shorten his name hasn't left everyone quite as thrilled as Rob's wife, Caitlin Olsen. She says their children are unhappy with the name change because they want to keep the family name. Rob and fellow actor Ryan Reynolds brought Wrexham in 2021, boosting the club's profile significantly. The club's journey has been documented in the Disney Plus series Welcome to Wrexham. Rob Mack aims to unify his personal brand with his expanding global ventures. Despite family concerns, Rob is moving forward with the official name change. Have you had to shrink your name, Matt? Do you know what? I've been called Scott. You can't shorten Scott.
No. And so
one syllable.
My legal name, my official name, and I'll never change it, is Max Batiscombe Scott. But having formerly been a teacher, right, I didn't want to give him that to mess around with, so just Mr. Scott will do.
Okay.
Max Scott on air will do, and so just shorten it to Max
so you've
Scott.
done it already.
Never change it officially. Never change.
No. Okay, fair enough.
Right, let's switch gears to the world of tennis, where British legend Andy Murray says he's got absolutely no plans to attend Wimbledon this year, not out of bitterness, but because he's simply not one to sit courtside unless a British player makes the final or one of his kids begs to go. I don't go to watch tennis as a fan, he says, though he admits a blockbuster matchup could still tempt him back. Instead, he's been pouring his energy into growing the game elsewhere, coaching wide-eyed school kids in West Byfleet and backing the revival of over 3,000 public park courts across the UK. Here, Andy Murray, I like that. While his own kids aren't showing superstar potential just yet, he beams over his eldest daughter's surprise win in a school match. He's also full of quiet admiration for rising stars like Jack Draper and Emma Raducanu, but avoids giving public advice, remembering how tough that was when he was younger. These days, Murray's more likely to be spotted perfecting his golf swing. Good lad. His handicap is now a solid 2, though he admits Tim Henman's still the one to beat. Still, what matters most to him now is pushing for more indoor tennis facilities in deprived areas, especially up north, so kids everywhere can get on court no matter the weather. Fair play, Sir Andy Murray. Now, talk about golf swing. The man opposite me is at the Belfry tomorrow. What's your handicap at the minute?
No, I actually only took it up, surprisingly enough, about 3 years ago.
Okay.
But I'm 18.
18.
Yeah.
I had
Did
to
you play?
Yeah, but I had to extend my clubs.
Well, you must. I know you're about 8'10".
Yeah, I'm 6'7", and I inherited my granddad's. He was a real keen golfer, and he had a set of Ping I2s. But thing is, he was about 5'8", so I had to extend them at great cost. And then I moved to the city, and I don't play golf when I'm in city. But when I go out,
what did you get down to? What's your best
mate,
handicap?
I was high, whatever the highest could be.
Okay.
If I connect, I can whack it far because I got long levers, but I'm not too good.
Yeah, I bored someone the other day telling this, but I'm going to say it one more time. On Monday, I played 72 holes in one day.
Jeez.
All for charity.
Do you know what? I worry about this for former athletes, particularly Andy Murray, who had back problems, knees, ankles, the lot. Is golf the sport?
Yeah, it's great.
But you're twisting and I don't know.
You're not running, you're not tackling, you're not elbowing anyone in the face. No, honestly, it's great.
But no, fair play to Sir Andy Murray there, by the way.
Yeah.
I love the fact he's investing in the grassroots game. I think it's what's needed, particularly up north.
Absolutely. And by the way, I think Jack Draper's got Djokovic in the quarter, he's got Sinner in the semi, and he's got Alcaraz in the final. So
yeah, but he's ranked 4.
Great
he
tournament.
Can do it. Yeah,
absolutely.
He's rising up the ranks.
Okay, now we'll finish on one of England's finest players, the one and only, and now Sir David Beckham.
Go on, Bex.
Beckham recently underwent surgery which stemmed from an old injury he suffered over 2 decades ago during an England friendly match against South Africa in 2003. In that game, Beckham fell awkwardly in a challenge with South African defender Thabang Molefe, landing heavily on his arm. Though clearly in pain, he continued playing with his wrist strapped and even assisted a goal for Gareth Southgate before being substituted early in the second half. At the time, doctors inserted a metal screw into Beckham's wrist to stabilise the injury. This screw was intended to dissolve over time, a common practice for minor fractures where dissolvable pins or screws are used to avoid future surgeries. However, in Beckham's case, the screw never dissolved as expected and instead embedded itself deeper into bone and tissue of his forearm.
Doesn't surprise me that, by the way. Why would you ever want to leave Bex? even if you're a little nail.
Well, for years, Beckham quietly...
Andy Goldstein's jealous of that nail, isn't he?
Is it?
Andy Goldstein is Beck's number one fan.
He wants to be that now, doesn't he? Quietly dealing with his discomfort, believing it was just lingering wear and tear from his football career, but as the pain intensified recently, a routine scan revealed the screw, stroke Andy Goldstein, was still there and had been likely causing increasing irritation or damage to surrounding tissue. Doctors decided surgery was necessary to remove it and relieve the pain. The operation was successful. Beckham is now recovering with his arm in a sling, supported by his family, especially wife Victoria, who posted a heartfelt "Get well soon, Daddy" message. Even legends carry old battle scars, but true to form, Beckham faces this one with a smile, a sling, and the same quiet resilience that defined his care.
Yeah, fair play. Serve better. Rise, serve Bex.
To be fair, Ledge, I played against him. I tried to mark him. Couldn't get close to him. So clever.
Not a chance. That was Stranger Things. This is the Sunday session. And up next, the team news from England versus Jamaica in a women's international friendly, the conclusion of the Austrian Grand Prix. And we're about to enter a new, never-seen era in Premier League football. This is talkSPORT.
knows there are 20 managers in the Premier League, yeah? Well, actually, no. Around 3/4 of them are not managers. The terms manager and head coach are often used interchangeably to describe Premier League bosses, but they're actually two different jobs. So let's explain how and why. For years, fans referred to Mikel Arteta as Arsenal's manager, but I'm afraid technically...
I don't think so, no.
From his first day on the job, he was the Gunners' head coach. Let's pick a random moment in time, February 2025. Only 6 Premier League bosses actually held the official title of manager rather than head coach. Man City's Pep Guardiola, David Moyes of Everton, Ipswich boss Kieran McKenna, Southampton's Ivan Juric, Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace and Leicester's Ruud van Nistelrooy were the only actual managers of their respective teams. Everyone else? That's right, head coach, including Ruben Amorim at Man United. He took over from Erik ten Hag, a man who had held the title of manager. Might come as a surprise that Amorim's appointment marked the first time ever that Man United had a head coach instead of a manager. But to understand why they made that decision, you also have to get what the difference is between a head coach and a manager. A manager's got a huge range of responsibilities. They're not just in charge of training and player lineups, they're also heavily involved in player sales and transfers. Critical stuff. But a head coach's role is far more focused on team training and performance on the pitch. So whereas Ten Hag was highly involved with decisions around transfers during his tenure, the intention was that Amorim wouldn't be, at least not on the same level. And as the sporting structure at Man United changed under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, people like Sir Dave Brailsford took charge of transfers instead. How all those roles play out in practice may be slightly different at different clubs though. On the other hand, the contracts of actual managers like Pep or Moyes had no limits on their job role and their involvement with transfers and contracts. But those guys are actually in the minority now, and it's a change that's happened pretty quickly. In 2019, there were only 6 head coaches in the Premier League, but by 2025 there were 14. A clear indication that more and more clubs are moving towards a model where the guy in charge is actually only really in charge on the pitch. And the way things are going, it might not be long before all 20 clubs have got head coaches, and the job position of football manager in the top flight is no more.
Good afternoon, how are we? You're listening to the Sunday session here on talkSPORT with me, Max Scott, alongside the one and only Scott Minto. We've got loads left to come in the final hour, but particularly we're going to be getting into the discussion about the new TV access for Premier League broadcasts, half-time interviews with managers. We're going to be interviewing substituted players. How do we feel about that? We're going to be getting dressing room content. Is this what the fans need? Is this what broadcasters deserve for paying multi-million-pound TV rights deals? Or is this just the YouTuberification, the Americanization of our beautiful game? We want your thoughts. Get in touch. 03717 22 33 Get your texts in 81089. This is the Sunday session on talkSPORT. But first, the Austrian Grand Prix has found its conclusion. talkSPORT's Piers Pryor is standing by to give us all the fallout. Piers, what can you tell us?
It was McLaren's day, as we potentially expected it to be. Lando Norris taking the win in the end, ahead of his teammate, Oscar Piastri. Oscar had a couple of goes at Lando throughout the race, but unfortunately couldn't get it done for his own championship bid. That closes the gap from over 20 points down to 15 or 16 after the fast lap also went to Oscar Piastri. The podium rounded out by Charles Leclerc and closely followed by Lewis Hamilton as well. So a good result for Ferrari in 3rd and 4th. George Russell in 5th. A great result also for Liam Lawson in 6th place, made the one-stopper work. Fernando Alonso 7th. 8th and 9th for both the kick-sours of Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hulkenberg. A great day for that team who have had a poor season up until now. And Esteban Ocon, the final place in the points. Disappointment for Red Bull. Max Verstappen out of the race after being hit by Kimi Antonelli on the first lap, and Yuki Tsunoda getting a penalty and finishing the last of the running cars. 70 laps and it was McLaren's day.
Brilliant stuff. Piers Pryor there talking us through the latest from the F1. But now the brilliant Natalie Pike is going to be with us now. She's watching England's women's latest test against Jamaica for talkSPORT today. Natalie, talk to us. What have you got from the team news?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Just 6 days to go until their opening game at Euro 25. England will be hoping for a strong and confident performance today. Their last game, or their send-off, as the FA are calling it, before they embark on the defence of their European title. It's going to be the first time they've ever faced Jamaica in a senior women's match. Also, the last time for players to impress Sarina Wiegman, although many do believe that today's starting 11 could be the one that lines up against France in that huge opener that's on Saturday night. So, no new injury concerns, but Lauren James, who has only recently returned to full fitness, she hasn't played since April, she starts on the bench today. So 2 changes from the team that were beaten by Spain in the Nations League at the start of the month. Fit again, Lauren Hemp is in, as is Jess Carter, with Park and Charles dropping. So, this is your team for England for today. It's Hampton in net, it's a back four of Bronze, Williamson, Greenwood and Carter. Then you've got that lovely solid defensive partnership of Stanway and Walsh. Ahead of them it's Toon, Hemp and Mead out wide, and Russo leading the line. We don't have the team news for the Reggae girls yet, but we do know that many of their star names that fans of the WSL recognise, they're not playing today. So the Golden Boot winner Bunny Shaw's out injured, as is Liverpool's Taylor Hines and Tottenham's Drew Spence. They've lost their last 3 games, including a 4-0 defeat last time out to the USA. It's going to be a difficult game for Jamaica today. It's a 5 p.m. kickoff, and we are here at Leicester's King Power Stadium.
Natalie, great stuff. Obviously, it's great news about Lauren James being back for the Lionesses. It's obviously so important for Sarina Wiegman and our chances of winning it again. But I want to get your take on this issue regarding leadership within the Lionesses squad. We've seen, obviously, the fallout from Millie Bright and Mary Earps sort of not putting themselves forward or not being picked as part of Sarina Wiegman's side. And with England having this sort of, you could say, group of death, France, Netherlands and Wales, how do you think they're going to fare without those senior leaders in the squad, with such a tough set of group fixtures coming up in the Euros?
I mean, it is certainly a group of death, although I can't help but think the leadership question's perhaps been blown a little bit out of proportion, because when you do look at that lineup, I mean, Alex Greenwood is the captain of Manchester City, Leah Williamson, the England captain, the joint captain at Arsenal, who just won the Champions League. The team is filled of players with vast experience, like Lucy Bronze.
Yeah.
I don't think they're lacking leadership. You know, even somebody like Lauren Hemp, who might not be the first person that comes to your mind, she leads by example on the pitch. So I actually don't think they've got a leadership problem.
Natalie, and just on Lauren James as well, we know that she's, still nursing her way back to sort of match fitness and that, but with in mind it is a group of death. You talked about whether this would be 11 that starts the first game. How tempting would it be by the time it starts to put her in, because you almost can't afford to lose that opening game, can you?
Oh, absolutely not. They've got to come out of the traps next Saturday. They've got to make a statement against France. They've got to get a result against either them or the Netherlands, and beat Wales. It really is a difficult group. I think everybody expected to see Lauren James on the bench today. Come 60 minutes or so, I think we'll see her warming up, and I do expect her to get minutes today. If she is going to start on Saturday night, she's going to have to get minutes today. Having said that, it gives the opportunity for the players that are playing today to really give Sarina Wiegman, some questions to answer, is should she get into the starting 11.
Brilliant stuff, Natalie. Thank you so much. That is Natalie Pike reporting for talkSPORT as England warm up for their Euros defence against Jamaica at the King Power Stadium. And don't forget that talkSPORT will be your home of the Women's Euros, starting with their first game against France on Saturday with Adrian Durham, Joe Shannon and Tash Dowie. Right, we're going to take a shift to some news that's been brewing for a long time, to be fair. I've seen reports of this, but it is official now. The Premier League games, Scott, are going to be including major new features next season in a huge shake-up. If you've just tuned in, let me recap. Half-time interviews with players and managers. Interviews with players who've been hoiked off. dressing room broadcasts, although obviously no team talks because that would interfere with the integrity of the game. The new approach is one of several US-style innovations to the league's TV coverage, with camera operators also set to be allowed on the pitch to capture close-up footage of goal celebrations. Scott Minto, is this a good thing or not?
So, can you tell me why you've been taken off, and what do you think of the manager right now? You know, it's
what are you going to get from it?
I mean, you are opening a big can of worms there. Look, I'm up for the cameras being able to jump on the pitch. Why not? And I understand what they're trying to do here. They're trying to take it to the next level. They're trying to stay always 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of everybody else. The Premier League is a financial monster, and you try and keep it that way and keep innovating. Look, from a player's point of view, I'd be like, what are you doing? I mean, obviously we do what we're told. It's not down to us. The same with the manager as well. It's down to the owners to decide that. I'm slightly surprised the Premier League has agreed to do it. I don't think it needs to. I listened to Jermaine Pennant the other day, and he was should we say very negative about it, and saying what he perhaps would say if he got taken off. And look, I'd just say I'm not speaking to you. Honestly, I would, you know, and unless I'm threatened with the match fine, with a week's fine or something like that, if I've just got taken off, why am I wanting to speak to, you know, my frustrations? And I see it says after a cooling down period. Trust me, you don't cool down until you're at home at night, and maybe even the next day. But look, it is what it is. I do get it. They're trying to stay a couple of steps ahead, but not for me. And I think the Premier League is in such a good place right now. It doesn't need it.
I totally understand why broadcasters who pay eye-watering sums for broadcast rights want as increased greater access. They want more bang for their buck. I understand it. And don't get me wrong, in the job that we're in, it'll give us loads more to talk about. However, what I would say is a bit of a purist. It feels like the mysterious veil between the common fan and the pro is being lifted season on, with sort of social media access, YouTube channels, all of that sort of stuff. And I just sort of think there's this obsession. We always need more. We need more content. And it just sort of... There's a part of me, not totally, but there's a part of me that is just a little bit repulsed by it, because I think that there needs to be that mystery. As a fan, you know, I'm happy to listen to Scott Minto break it down at half time. I don't necessarily, I certainly am, mate, but I don't necessarily need to see a sweaty Cole Palmer who's just been hooked off, well, maybe not Cole Palmer, but you know what I mean, a player who's just been, what are you really going to get from them other than a headline, other than them being angry? And that just creates noise that maybe isn't necessary, but I do understand it.
I think it's going to be sort of negative towards if it's going to be interesting, it's going to be negative. And basically, a lot of players, when they get taken off, what are they going to give you really? Even managers, I'm telling you now, will not want to do it. So they'll give the real basic, bland answers. And sometimes I think we're in danger of thinking, you know, if we don't keep on trying to improve it, then we go backwards. When actually, it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think with something like this, and look, we'll wait and see whether it works or not. And you will get the odd bit of nugget, an interesting piece of analysis. But I do think it's either going to be really boring in terms of the answers, or it's going to be very controversial, which actually for that club is not going to do
what they need.
The player, the fans, the manager relationship any favours at all.
To play devil's advocate, though, other sports have included it, like cricket, you know, and I know it's a different game.
They kind of have to. And football...
But does the Premier League not need to do it to survive? I mean, I saw a report towards the end of the Premier League season that TV audience is massively dropped because, you know, the relegation fight, the title fight were done. And it is true that there is a younger sporting audience that much prefer watching streamers react to football games, much prefer watching YouTube. And maybe this is a necessary part for the Premier League to continue to be the cash cow that it is, to ensure, therefore, that teams get the most money, invest in their teams, and that we continue to be the best league in the world. So maybe it is necessary.
Well, then have fans TV. You know, I mean, for me, I'm like you.
But that's another cost on top, isn't it, fans TV?
For me, the purists... I mean, don't get me going on kids nowadays in terms of their attention span, you know, and it's all about the 3-minute highlights. You know, even a 90-minute game, they're struggling to sit and watch. But I don't necessarily blame them with the devices that are out there nowadays and the addiction that it can cause. And you swipe all the time. Look, I get it. I do get it. I'm not someone who thinks, look, we shouldn't look for changes and we shouldn't look to improve. I just don't think in this particular instance you're going to get things that are either very interesting or very constructive. Now, as I say, if there's someone who comes and say, he doesn't know what he's doing, you know, I was playing well there, then that's going to be great for us. We're going to be talking about it all day long. And I don't blame the broadcasters at all asking for it. I'm just surprised that the owners, or should we say the owners, perhaps didn't take into consideration or perhaps even consider with the managers or the players. And look, they're the owners of the clubs. Yeah. They can certainly do that. I think it's going to be good for us. We'll have to wait and see. But sifting through the boring answers, there will be the odd bit of nugget every now and again. But yeah, look, kids nowadays, they always want something, and they always want, to be sitting in front and to be entertained as much as possible. Sometimes you just watch a football match and that should be enough.
I mean, one thing it makes me think of, imagine if you'd have interviewed Alejandro Garnacho when he was sat on the bench in the Europa League final. You would get an absolute nugget. Yeah. But I understand your reservations, certainly. Right, up next. Harry, the Chelsea fan, sends in the Scripps Hall of Fame regarding the England under-21 Euros winner, Jonathan Rowe. But next on the Sunday session, we are going to continue to discuss the new Premier League coverage and be taking your calls on this. So please do get in touch, 03717223344. If you call in now, you will get through. Next on the Sunday session, discussing those changes to the Premier League rules right here on the Sunday session.
Sounds of the weekend on the Sunday session on talkSPORT.
Yes, you are listening to the Sunday session here on talkSPORT with the two Scots, me, Max Scott, alongside former Chelsea and Benfica defender Scott Minto. What a banger this is, by the way. The only way is up. This has been sent in by, I think, Dino, the Brentford fan, talking about Jonathan Rowe and his rise from mascot, to match winner. Amazing. Another great success for Lee Carsley's under-21s. But now we are talking about the changes to the Premier League coverage. Scott Minto, we've just, in the break, been carrying on our conversation. You're not a huge fan, are you?
Do you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's give it a go and see. But again, it's the broadcasters. What I don't want to get away from actually the quality of just watching a football match and seeing what happens. I think we're going to go down a route of, as you know, what did you call it? Sort of like the YouTubification. Yeah, absolutely. And football's a wonderful game, and it's the most popular sport in the world. And the Premier League is the most popular, whether you call it at the very highest or not, the most popular league in the world. And we don't have to change everything.
Yeah. Well, Scott Minto's not a massive fan, nor is Jake the Notts County fan. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, it's just they're trying to squeeze every bit of penny they can at the end of the day. There's going to be no positive out of it. Yeah, it'll be good for the media. Yeah, you might get the odd bit of analysis like you guys have said, but there's nothing positive that's going to. It's just going to end up in players getting fined, potential bans, and it's they're going over the top. It's too over the top.
Look, I tend to agree, Jake, but one thing I think that some fans would say is we pay an absolute, ton of money to pay for these TV subscriptions. We want more bang for our buck.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I think that the money that they're charging is ridiculous, and I think that's a whole different argument in itself. It's rather than what they're doing at the moment is it's more for the views, but the prices that we pay, that's a different argument in the sense of we should be paying lower prices. Like the money that they charge is absolutely ridiculous. But if I'm paying a stupid amount of subscription, do I want to pay an extra God knows how much because they can now offer something which we didn't need in the first place? They'll say, oh, you're getting this interview halfway through, you're getting midway match substitution interviews. At the end of the day, I'm not paying more just because I can hear Bruno moan about something because he got subbed off halfway through a match. I want to watch it. Well, I'm at the games every week anyway, but it's just pointless. I don't want to hear players moan at the halfway through a match. Again, you'll have one or two where you might have a bit of clickbait online, but it's just a pointless exercise, and I think it's just going to end in fines and potential suspensions, and it's not going to help morale of players at the end of the day either.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, Jake. I think that's a really good point.
Well
I mean, Scott, as a former player, if you've been hoiked off for whatever reason.
Never happened to me, of course.
Of course not. Never. Of course not. Chelsea, Benfica legend, Duolingo expert. But you're not. I just sort of think. Surely there comes a point where you just feel for the player. I know they're all on an absolute massive wage, but you just sort of think, just give them a minute. You would hate it, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would be interesting if it goes down to the EFL. And if it was the EFL doing it, I'd kind of understand because they're trying to. There's a big gap, isn't there, between the EFL and the Premier League? This is the Premier League for me that doesn't really need it. And with the Premier League players, you get more money, you've got perhaps more ego. And look, in one sense, almost if I was the reporter, you can say, well, why have you made this change at half time, or why haven't you made a change at half time? Those sort of questions to a manager can be very interesting for a viewer, but almost asking the same sort of question almost all the time to make it interesting. Otherwise, then you're finding ways to justify you being there in the first place. I just think managers again will bat it away. So. No, I'm with Jake on that one.
Well, yesterday on kick-off, former Liverpool midfielder Jermaine Pennant had his say on this, and it's safe to say he hasn't held back on a substitute giving an interview.
I can't see that working here. If you sub him, just imagine you subbing Bruno Fernandes off at 16 minutes, he's going to be losing his rag.
Yeah.
If I was to get subbed at Stoke, for example, and then put Tony Pulis will put Ryan Shine on, I'll be effing the blindness. Then why are you bringing this guy on? No disrespect to Ryan Shine, he was a centre back, and for some reason Tony Pulis put him right wing because he was quick. He had a throw. No, genuinely
really?
Yes, that was why. Yeah. 100%.
How fuming were you after that?
I was raging, absolutely raging. So were the fans. And if I had a mic in my face, I probably wouldn't play for the rest of the season because and. You give me a call down, I'm going home after that game, and I'm still raging, especially if we lost as well. And I'm coming in the next day, and I'm moody, sulking. So I can't see this working here. Yeah. I can't see, just imagine you're getting spanked 3-0 by Liverpool, and then someone's got a mic in your face saying, how did that go for you? Yeah, I thought it was quite well. We're losing 3-0, but it's okay. It's just not going to work out. Our football is not like that.
Jermaine Pennant making absolutely no bones about it there.
I'm glad he's over it.
Yeah, he's still fuming that people stuck him off about 10, 15 years ago.
He's spot on. He's spot on.
No, I totally agree.
He's come out with a sort of an extreme example, but it happened.
Yeah.
So could you imagine Jermaine being asked, or players being asked? You either go one way, or you don't want to talk about it, or you end up getting a 2-week fine and you're probably not played, and you're going to have a transfer by the end of the season because you've said something you shouldn't have said that you can't take back. But from a broadcasting point of view, again, maybe that's a great thing. And the players in the Premier League, well, you're going to have to be a bit clever in what you say. But
I'll tell you what, it makes me think, Scott. We've been talking at the top of the show, we were talking about the Club World Cup. We were talking about, player welfare, these top players not having a break for a couple of years because they've got a Club World Cup and then they've got a World Cup. And so there are concerns there. Even Rodri's come out and spoken about the fact that, he thinks that there will be a time where players strike. We're putting them out in, ungodly temperatures, and they're having to have drinks breaks. We're putting them out in front of lightning, and they're having to stop play for 2 hours like we saw Chelsea last night.
Or not in front of lightning.
Well,
no
exactly.
Lightning.
But so I know that players are paid an eye-watering sum of money, but of all of the list of things I've just said, and now you include the Premier League telling these players, you've got no choice over this. You're going to, if you get subbed, be interviewed, or at half-time and you're knackered and you want to go in and have some electrolytes and refuel. No, you're going to have to go and speak to whoever it is on the telly. I just sort of wonder, are we getting to a point where, I know, I have to keep saying this, I know they're paid a lot of money, but these players, you talk about the pressure. You talk about the pressure being an England player and winning a World Cup and how heavy shirts weigh in the modern era. I just sort of think we're not helping these players. Just give them a break. The incessant, constant need for content and social media clips and likes. Sometimes maybe, just maybe, is it getting a bit too much?
It's almost like we're prodding at them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Prodding them to get some kind of negative reaction, not just positive reaction. This could sound really good if, players, why specifically players getting substituted, getting taken off? And then, after a cool-down period, I've just said, there is no cool-down period. It's probably at least 24 hours.
Yeah, Jermaine said the exact same thing.
Absolutely. So, look, in one sense, I'm more with them not playing 12 months of the year in terms of getting the quality. That, for me, is more important, the player welfare. In another sense, it's almost like, well, therefore, maybe they've got to be taught more behind the scenes about what you could say, what you couldn't say. Someone needs to come in and help them out in that respect. They are on a lot of money, and I do get it. It's almost like sometimes you're being asked to do something that you wouldn't normally do because you're on more money. Well, actually, sometimes with more money comes more responsibility, and you have to be able to find a way. But these are teenagers, kids in their 20s, and people say, well, that's old enough to still deal with it. But for a lot of people, it's not.
No, absolutely not. Look, we will continue to talk about this. I'm sure it's going to be a massive talking point next season, and we wait with bated breath to see who that first manager or player is to upset the apple cart, to go talk out, away from the party line, maybe upset the owners.
It won't be Nuno.
No, it won't
By the way, how good a diplomat is he?
Oh my goodness! I think it's like yin and yang, Nuno and Mr. Marinakis.
Yeah.
It's like the fire and the passion of Evangelos Marinakis and the calm and sort of yoga.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's no problem. It's normal.
It's a perfect team.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, Forest going to be conquering Europe next season. Cannot wait. Mist rolling in from the Trent. Right, up next, we'll be looking at the business end of the Club World Cup as the talkSPORT network will be bringing you the Lionel Messi derby. This is the Sunday session on talkSPORT.
pads are a footballer's best friend. Even if players like Jack Grealish do wear such small ones you can barely even see them. But what's the story with shin pads, and are there actually any rules on how big they should be? It all started with cricket, actually. Cricketers had been wearing shin pads since the 1700s. It was thanks to this guy that shin protection made its way over to football. Meet Samuel Widdowson. He was a cricketer and a footballer. He played for Nottingham Forest back in the late 1800s, and he wanted a way to protect his legs from nasty tackles. Naturally, his mind drifted to his other favourite sport, where players had been wearing these pads for a century. Story goes, Widdowson cut up his cricket pads and popped them on before taking to the footy pitch. His Nottingham Forest team then began wearing them from 1887, and the first known use of them in a match was in 1894, in a match between Newcastle and the then Woolwich Arsenal. Eventually, FIFA clocked on that this kind of protection was pretty important for footballers. And so, in 1990, basically 100 years after Widdowson first put them on, shin pads were made compulsory. It became part of Law 4 of IFAB. That's the body responsible for setting the laws of the game internationally. But the law doesn't actually specify anything about measurements of shin pads. It just says they must be made of a suitable material and be of an appropriate size to provide reasonable protection. It's really vague, even though there have been calls for it to be changed. But for now, that's why Grealish and co can still get away with these ones, which are no bigger than a credit card and which seem to offer little to no protection whatsoever.
Yes, it's the two Scots with you on the Sunday session, Max Scott and Scott Minto, but we're now going to cross over to an even better duo. Kev Hatchard and Dean Ashton are covering PSG versus Inter Miami in the Club World Cup round of 16. It's live over on talkSPORT 2. How are you, Kev?
Yeah, really good. Really good. Excited for this one because it's not just Lionel Messi who's facing his former club. Luis Enrique's coming up against a lot of his former players because 4 of this starting 11 for Inter Miami. So you've got Luis Suarez, Lionel Messi, Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba. They all started for Luis Enrique for Barcelona in the 2015 Champions League final, which they won against Juventus. So yeah, subplots and reunions everywhere you look for this one.
Absolutely. Have you got any other team news in terms of what's happening with PSG? Are they fielding a full squad, full strength squad?
Yeah, they've gone very, very strong. So they've only made one change to the team that beat Seattle Sounders in their final group game. 10 of the players who started the Champions League final start this one. So as you'd expect, Donnarumma in goal, Nuno Mendes, Marquinhos, William Pacho, Achraf Hakimi at the back, João Neves, Fabian Ruiz and Vitinha in midfield. Bradley Barcola, he's come in for the change alongside Desiree Doué and Kvicha Kvaratskhelia. It's quite scary, that lineup, when you think about it.
Do you know what, Dino and Kev? I did the PSG Atletico game where they literally picked up where they left off in the Champions League final, but obviously they lost to Botafogo as well. Dino, is there any way we can see, and it would be a massive surprise for Inter Miami to do what Botafogo did and knock PSG out?
I'm just not sure defensively they're going to be capable of stopping the power and quality that PSG have got, and especially with how strong they've gone. And just I think the difference in the togetherness, the work off the ball that PSG now have when you watch them, alongside that ridiculous pace and athleticism, even with players on the bench to come in, I don't think there's much of an opportunity. I think there will be moments, though. That's what this Inter Miami team have already shown, Kev, is that they're capable of big moments.
Yeah, it's the dynamism in midfield that I think is the problem for Inter Miami, because we know Busquets has been one of the great central midfielders of his age, but is he going to be able to cope with João Neves, with Vitinha, with Desiree Doué trying to run past him, with Fabian Ruiz. So I would worry about that. He's alongside Sergio Busquets, Federico Redondo, who is the son of Fernando Redondo. I think even with Fernando in the team, they might struggle to contain this PSG midfield.
Fellas, I really want to get your take on this, and I'm sure you've seen these comments, but during an interview with a German newspaper, Jurgen Klopp was discussing the Club World Cup. And obviously you guys are watching this, you're across it for talkSPORT, and I want to get your take on what he said. Jurgen Klopp says, it's all about the game and not the surrounding events, and that's why the Club World Cup is the worst idea ever implemented in football in this regard. People who have never had or do anything to do with the day-to-day business anymore are coming up with something. Last year it was the Copa America and the European Championship. This year it's the Club World Cup, and next year the World Cup. That means no real recovery for the players, neither physically or mentally. So Jurgen Klopp, sort of, now he steps outside of day-to-day management of a football club. He's not mincing his words there, saying that it's the Club World Cup is the worst idea ever implemented in football. Do you agree?
To be fair to him, he's only saying what he was saying as Liverpool manager, and before that he's been talking about player welfare year in, year out, and so I'm not surprised he said that. I think the player welfare part of it is a huge problem, because he's right in the sense that the players at the top level are going to go all the way through this, all the way through the domestic season, and they're going to go slap bang into a World Cup, so there's going to be no opportunity really for them to have any kind of rest in that regard. I actually think a bigger problem is the financial inequality you're going to get, because what you're going to get is you're going to get teams that pick up huge amounts of money, especially if they qualify for this, every 4 years, and you're going to create, not necessarily in the Premier League per se, because there's a lot of clubs that can, bring money to bear. But if you look at some of the South American teams who are involved, if you look at, even a team like Auckland, for example, I know they're not getting a huge amount in the grand scheme of things, but still a lot more than most teams in their region would dream of getting. So I think there are problems, but what I would say on the positive side, I think the football's been great. In a lot of examples, and I think as well it's important for South American teams, for Asian teams, for Mamelodi Sundowns, for example, to get the opportunity to play against some of the best teams on the planet. So I think, like many things, it's very much a mixed picture.
I think he sounds very grumpy, is what it sounds like to me. And I understand the player welfare part, but I think his comments were so strong to talk about it being the most ridiculous idea that I think it's not a great look for him in particular. And also, if you're talking about the purity of football, okay, forget the finances and FIFA and how they see this competition and all of those things. Actually, the purity of it. I remember watching years ago Manchester United play in this competition, and I love the fact that I got to see players from all across the world compete against the players I was so used to seeing all of the time. That's the purity of it, is that we get to see these players that we're not used to seeing up against our stars.
Dino, how important is then, do you feel, that we go fast forward to the semi-final and it's not all 4 semi-finalists that are from Europe? But that just becomes a Champions League then, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's got that feel, hasn't it? If that's what happens, I'm with you. I hope it doesn't. But I think the strength that European teams have and the players that they're capable, and I think the squads. I think that's the biggest difference I've noticed, even in this game tonight. The squad difference and the quality that they have waiting on the sidelines when you have this fatigue is just the difference for me.
I've got to say, I totally agree with what Kev's been saying about. One of the most refreshing things about the Club World Cup for me has been the flair on show and the great success of the South American teams, particularly Brazilian sides. And I think that it's been a little bit of a reminder, perhaps, to the sort of the arrogant European football fan that thinks it's, they're worlds away. I mean, the likes of Flamengo, Palmeiras, they're showing that that's not the case, right? And even watching Boca Juniors against Benfica, what a spectacle that was. However,
well, for once it's a fair fight, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No.
Because they're in the middle of their season. Yeah. Normally what happens is you get the European teams playing mid-season. That's not necessarily the case for the South American champions as it used to be many years ago. Obviously it's been expanded a couple of times since then. So it is fair in that regard. But again, even that's a double-edged sword, because what South American experts will tell you is that who are the big superpowers in South American football? It's not the Argentinian teams generally. It's generally the Brazilian big hitters, and they tend to get pretty deep in the Copa Libertadores. So the danger here is that Botafogo, Palmeiras, Fluminense, they get really big financial boosts. What happens to the rest of the league? What happens to the rest of the continent? So the football has been great. I think there are issues around, and UEFA's got this problem as well, by the way. There are issues around financial inequality in the game that need addressing, and they need addressing quickly.
Do you think you're watching the eventual winners here?
Yeah, I think we are. I think PSG... the game becomes easier when you're winning, I think. And I think that kind of squad depth they have, the momentum they currently have, the confidence in each other, the coach, I think they have all of the ingredients you need to win it. However, Man City did look very, very scary the other night, so wouldn't surprise me to see a Man City PSG final.
Speaking of Manchester City, Dino, I'd really like your take on this, because obviously we've been talking constantly throughout this Club World Cup about the issue of player fatigue, about players being burnt out, and we know that Rodri, who's a huge leader in that Manchester City squad, has previously made quite strong comments about the potential for players to protest in the future. I want to get your take on this as a former player. Do you think that it's fair for players? Do you think that that is on the horizon, or do you think ultimately they get paid enough, they need to man up, work hard and carry on playing?
I am absolutely the wrong person to ask as someone that had to retire early. God, I'd have played every day if I could. Yeah. And I know that's a flippant comment, but what I would say is, and maybe the players are different now, I'm not too sure. I'm not privy to being in the squads with them. I've never, ever heard a player complain about too many matches. I've heard them complain then if you have to train hard in between, and then that sort of comes in between the matches when they're thick and fast. I've never heard a player complain about playing too much, because you enjoy it too much. I know the travel can be difficult, but when the game comes around, I've never heard players complain, but I never had to play the amount of games that they are at the moment.
I think there are two strands here, just quickly. I think there are two strands here. The first is the game has changed. There's no doubt. There's a lot more sprinting. You look at the pressing, and I know pressing's not new, right? Pressing was going on decades ago.
What's that?
Dino didn't have to do that, so it was fine. But look, pressing's been around forever, but the number of sprints, the data will tell you this. Number of sprints, number of minutes young players are playing, all of that stuff. It is a different game now to what it was, say, 20 years ago. The other part of this is the mental side, right? Because we can talk about that, physically they should be fine, but players have to deliver every 3 days, especially at the top level. I mean, look at Vitinha. He's just won the Champions League. He's just won the Nations League with Portugal. Now he's trying to win this. That's all fine, but eventually that's going to have some kind of impact at some stage. I think we're going to have to go the other way. I think we're going to have to allow or encourage squads of 35, 40 players. I think that's... If this isn't going to change, and I don't think it is, I don't think anybody's stepping away here. UEFA aren't, FIFA aren't, the Premier League aren't. Nobody's stepping away. Fine. Give them 10 more players. Get a load of young players through, because that's the only way we're going to do this and keep the product, and I hate using that word, but keep the product at the quality we want it to be.
What do you think about that, Scott?
I understand exactly where Kev's coming from, and I understand where Dino's coming from, but if this is going to be here for the foreseeable future, and I think it will be, and if anything it will get bigger, Liverpool, Arsenal, Barcelona, just to name 3 teams that aren't in this tournament, I think to constantly do it almost 12 months of the year, I think it will give, and I think they're almost... it's not about player welfare anymore. It's just about, right, we'll get the next person in, the next person in. And I mentioned this to you earlier. I was fortunate enough to be a professional footballer, but I want to watch, when I watch the Euros, the Club World Cup, the World Cup, players do things that I could only dream about doing on a football pitch. And I don't think we're going to get that if we're continually playing 12 months a year. If you look at the players, look at Chelsea, for example. They played the Premier League. They played the Europa Conference League final. The players then went off to the internationals, and then they've come into this. Just from a physical, and Kev's right to bring up the mental side as well, you cannot keep that going for year after year after year. So I understand where Dino's coming from. I mean, injury cut him short, and it's horrendous that happened. He would have, how many caps for England, I don't know, he would have won, but I just think after a while, even Dino would be saying, come on, I need a bit of a rest here.
Yeah, look, brilliant stuff as always from Kev Hatchard and Dean Ashton there. They are covering PSG's Club World Cup round of 16 clash with Inter Miami live over on talkSPORT 2. Now, though, time for another sounds.
Another one bites the dust. Another one gone. Another one gone. Another one bites the dust.
That's it, another one bites the dust from Queen. That's been sent in by Willoughby, the Fleetwood Town fan, regarding Jake Paul's victory. He's got another victim on his long line of OAPs and has-beens. Fair play, Jake Paul. But up next, we'll bring you the best stats from the past week in the world of sport. This is the Sunday Session on talkSPORT. Afternoon, how are we? Not long left on this Sunday session with me, Max Scott, and Scott Minto. But former Premier League manager Alan Pardew joins Majestic for the final word after this, and I'm being told they've got a jam-packed show, so make sure you stick around. But before then, it's time for a little bit of this.
I'm a scat man. He's 19 years of age. He only made his little debut 12 years ago.
No manager has ever started their Premier League career with as many pints as you have.
Ashley Young has been replaced as well by Sean Dyche. Oh, God, he's got it right in the peanuts.
Sam Matterface.
I'm a scat man.
Every time I listen to that, it still cracks me up.
It's classic, I love it.
Sam.
Right, we start Statterface with newly appointed Brentford manager Keith Andrews, who will just be the second manager called Keith to permanently manage a club in the English top flight, along with Keith Birkinshaw at Tottenham between 1976 and 1984.
That's amazing.
How about
I need two Keiths.
Well, Keith's a dying breed, bless him.
Yeah.
Would you, if you happen to have another child, would you call him Keith?
I know Keith very well, so I refuse to answer that question. I think the answer's there. Get a load of this. Leicester City only scored 17 Premier League goals in their 25 matches under Ruud van Nistelrooy. 2 fewer than Van Nistelrooy scored as a player in his first 25 appearances in the competition, where he got 19 in 2001 too.
Absolute shocker. Well, I'd say I'm worried about Leicester. I'm a Forest fan. I'm not worried about them at all, but I think they're going to struggle.
Are you happily concerned for them?
I'm concerned with glee. Right, next up, there's going to be more players from English clubs competing at UEFA Women's Euro 2025 than from any other country. Women's games going great guns, with 14 of the 16 nations having at least one Barclays WSL player in their squad. Happy days.
Yeah, it's a good sign. And one final stat to make Manchester United fans excited. Victor Gyökeres scored more league goals last season, that was 39, than both Joshua Zirkzee, 31, and Rasmus Højlund, 32, have scored across their careers to date. If goals are what you want, Gyökeres is your man.
I had this conversation with Rory Jennings, another fellow Chelsea fan. He's a lot more difficult than you are, Scott, I will say that. And my argument was, look, he scored 100 goals in 2 seasons. I know it's, people, and you certainly won't do it, people say, oh, well, it's just the Portuguese league. Well, I'm sorry, I don't care. He's done his job. He's bagged 100 times in 2 seasons. No Premier League squad. With the lack of sort of strikers around the world at the minute, it seems, you cannot turn your nose up at Victor Gyökeres.
No, and he knows English football as well, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
Having played in England, and the Championship is certainly relentless. I think he'd be a really good signing for whoever gets him. He's ready-made now. He's ready, whereas a lot of the players, and I can include Nicholas Jackson and Rasmus Højlund, they're just not ready yet.
Yeah, there is no other striker on the market that has the goal ratio that Victor Gyökeres does. I say, put some respect on his name. I don't care if he's just done it for sporting. That's a fantastic achievement, what he's done. So, yeah, I think...
He scored in Europe as well, against English teams.
Against City.
Absolutely.
Yeah, get him in the bag, United. Right, and we cannot end Statface without mentioning England's under-21's impressive 3-2 victory against Germany in the 2025 final last night. England became the first side in UEFA European Under-21 Championship history, God, that's a mouthful, to win the competition in successive editions on multiple occasions, also managing that feat in 1982 and 1984. Champions League Carsley. Brilliant, that, isn't it?
What year were you born?
93.
That's scary.
Well, it's scary for me. I'm 32. All my mates are married with kids.
Oh, don't worry about that, mate. Enjoy life.
No, I tell you what, I am, to be fair. I'm loving it.
Do you want one more?
I do want one more.
Okay. A last mention to the England under-21 star player Harvey Elliott. He netted 5 goals during the 2025 UEFA European under-21 Championships, with only Mark Hateley in 1984 ever scoring more in a single edition for England at the competition. And he got 6.
Yeah.
Marksman.
Absolutely. He needs to go and play regular football.
Yeah.
I would love him at Forest.
Who would he play instead of?
Well, I think Forest are in a position now where there is an appeal to go and play for Forest because they're a growing club.
Yeah.
We've just got planning permission to extend the Peter Taylor stand, which is going to be, they're modernising that stand, the area. We're in Europe. Everybody knows we've got a lot of money. We've got England internationals coming out of our areas.
Very ambitious
owner. A fan base that's rejuvenated.
Yeah.
And so, look, I'm not trying to limit at all Harvey Elliott. I think he could go and play easily in a top 6, but I mean, Forest finished 7th, so why not play for us?
Well, you're in Europe.
Exactly. And I just think any club across Europe should be looking at Harvey Elliott, having seen, and I'll stress this again, the leadership, the nous that he showed on the pitch. I think any European club should look at him. And there are so many clubs, aren't they? Look at Jonathan Rowe, got the winner. He's gone over to Marseille.
Yeah.
Joe Bellingham gone over to Dortmund. There are a host of English players plying their trade in Europe, and I think it's because they realise they're going to be given the respect that they deserve, they're going to be given the opportunity that they deserve, and I think that that's something that the Premier League needs to change. I think there needs to be a bit more of a culture. I think particularly at your Chelsea, who are hoarding young talent, I think you need to...
What are you having a pop at Chelsea for, honestly?
I just think
honestly, you've been such a nice guy all this time, and as we're coming to the end,
got a
little dig in there. Yeah.
Right, I just think there are so many great players at Chelsea. Why do you need to, get in 65 million quid when you've probably got someone who could be as good as him in a year's time in the ranks not playing football?
Listen, I couldn't agree with you more in that. But you're basically talking about him out of a move to Forest. Is that what you're saying? Because my question was, who does he play? He's got to play regularly, and he's almost got to be one of the, if not the star man. That's how I see it. I'm not sure he's going to be the star man at Nottingham Forest, but he can certainly be going in there. So my question is, where would he play?
What Nuno likes to do is he likes to rotate Anthony Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi. They don't start all of the time, much to the dismay of Forest fans at times. And I think that Harvey Elliott has the versatility to play wide and play more centrally. So I think he could, and Hudson-Odoi does that a lot. So I think he could easily play alongside Morgan Gibbs-White and Anthony Elanga on one of the wings and sort of add a bit more, being able to come inside.
Yeah, look, the bottom line is we talked about which one of these now are ready for the step up. I think you've got to impress Thomas Tuchel even more than you would have had to have done a Gareth Southgate,
definitely,
who was absolutely looking towards the youngsters. I feel Thomas Tuchel's looking the other way now towards the senior pros and experienced ones. He needs to be playing. He's got to go. But he's been so good in this competition, and he has been player of the tournament. how much Liverpool want for him.
Well,
now.
I was going to say, is there a world in which Arne Slot looks at that and says, you know what, we're going to give him some more minutes this season because he was absolutely class on the grass, and maybe he ends up staying at Anfield?
Who would he get in? I mean,
well, I know it's a good point.
Wirtz has just come in now, so it's going to be even harder.
Yeah.
You know, Szoboszlai is going to start. McAllister's going to start. Gravenberch obviously is that holder midfield. Mo Salah. Luis Diaz is, if he goes, then possibly.
But then I look at that and I think you sort of feel so sorry for the young English talent. And again, it reinforces my point. This is why they're going abroad. So maybe a Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah,
you know, go with Jarell Kwanzaa, who we understand is having his medical at Leverkusen for a £40 million package. Maybe go with him. You know, you've got Erik ten Hag, who'll know how he plays. Who'll, know him well as a player, having been a manager at United. And it might be, that might be a great move from Leverkusen.
I think it's a really good move for Kwanzaa. And I think it's definitely good money as well for Liverpool. I was at the first game of the season where, one, I was surprised for him to be picked anyway, but two, I was even more surprised for him to be taken off at half-time. And almost since then, it's almost like Arne Slot didn't really believe in him, so he's had to get away. I think Harvey Elliott will have to as well.
Switching quickly to your beloved Chelsea, I've just had a dig at them for hoarding all these players and spending over £1 billion. You still ain't got a Premier League title under Todd Bowley. But away from that, what are the ambitions for Chelsea? Do you reckon Enzo Maresca this time next season will be Chelsea manager?
That's a good question. Do you know what? He needs help. And look, he said what he said after that Forest game. I don't want to dig that, by the way. But what was the result again? The City Ground last game of the season?
He was in a relegation dogfight last season and ended up getting Europe.
No, brilliant season, I have to say, for Forest. And just you and I had chats throughout the season, and it was, don't be disappointed if you're a Forest fan that you didn't finish in the Champions League or the Europa League. But Chelsea have spent about 1.2 billion, but he still needs help, and it seems crazy to say. And I go back to the fact of, you need senior pros as well.
Totally.
You know, it's the combination. It was an easy one with the Europa Conference League and Premier League. It's going to be the most difficult one with the Champions League and the Premier League. So anyone thinks now that they should get higher than fourth, otherwise it's a failure. Look at Newcastle when they struggled to deal with the Champions League and Premier League combination. Villa very nearly did it last season.
Yeah.
But no, it's going to be really hard. I genuinely would take the final Champions League spot for Chelsea right now, and hopefully get into the maybe quarterfinals of the Champions League. That's what I'll be looking for.
Yeah, I think that very reasonable. Again, if I was sat opposite, I seem to always be put on air with Chelsea fans. I do a show with Rory Jennings. I love it, and I don't think he would be as measured as you were, Scott.
Well, thank you very much, Max. I do appreciate that.
Now we're coming to the end of the show. You got any plans for the rest of the weekend, mate? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm on my way to Birmingham tonight. Straight away on the train. I'm going to be at the Belfry. I am going to play a bit of golf, but it's actually I'm working on behalf of a company called Transfer Room, which is a really interesting concept. The platform they've got of directors of football and CEOs meeting up with agents. They have summits, which is they almost have it like speed dating style. So there's lots of tables, 15 minutes on the clock, big buzzer goes, 15 minutes, pre-arranged meetings, and then you talk about. And within that sort of 2-day summit, you can probably get equivalent of months worth of connections being made. So.
Look at you influencing the football world.
Well,
from behind the scenes.
It seems very strange, doesn't it, me being an influencer? But honestly, I love doing it. It's great fun. It's a great concept. And I'm even going to play a bit of golf.
Lucky boy.
Yeah.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Oh, well, I am going to the gym, then I'm going to bed because I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning to come back into work. So, not quite as spoiled as you at the Belfry.
No, mate, well done. 3 hours have absolutely flown by, so well done.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Right, and for the final time today... Yeah, Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey belting out When You Believe. This was sent in by Carol from Harrow, referring to the now legend that is Jonathan Rowe, scoring that winner for England against the Germans, so that Lee Carsley's boys became back-to-back under-21s champions. Thank you, Scott. What a great listen it's been. I've been Max Scott alongside Scott Minto. It's been an absolute pleasure, but stay tuned because up next on talkSPORT is Majestic and former Premier League manager Alan Pardew as they bring you the final word of the weekend.